don't stay. I mean, even if it's a fantastic place and you love, and you find yourself stuck, just make a move. In my world, and in Arabic, we say, when you move, كل حركة فيها بركة.
صح.
If you move, there's always something there for you. If one door closes, the multiple doors will open. That's the positivity I want to spread.
Hi there, guys. I'm here with Jameel today, and we're going to talk about everything IT, photography, and how you started, how you ended up here, and what brought you into Bahrain.
Well, thank you, Hamad, for having me today. It's wonderful to maybe be part of this show, and I think this is probably the first time I've ever have I'm on a show like this.
Really?
So it's fascinating, and I love photography. I'm used to see those cameras, staring at me. So
you get used to it very quickly.
So it's quite interesting to meet you, and I'm very fascinated about your place as well. So thank you so much for inviting me, and
the pleasure.
It's a great honor to be on your show. And I think what drew my attention is the idea that you're basically trying to share thoughts and ideas from people in various industries, so that maybe the younger generations can learn and be inspired about successful people. So I think that's what really caught my attention.
Thank you very much.
I don't know how you managed to get my,
I can tell you.
Maybe somebody referred you, but
no, so what we always try to do is I always try to find for people who I find interesting. Right? Because if I don't find them interesting, I'm not going to be able to have a good conversation with them. Because I've never wanted to do like a typical style interview where it's, hard questions and it's very repetitive. I always wanted to have like we're having coffee,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. And so what fascinated me was your position of how you went from consultancy into now being a CEO, right? And I mean, this is some people is typical in the consultancy world. Other people go, you know what, I'm happy being a consultant, and then maybe I'll join a startup or whatever else.
Yeah.
And especially with your experience in being in banking, sorry.
Yes.
Your basic expression.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's definitely an interesting career so far. I think that's how I should sum it up. Probably I had a very good opportunity probably in my time early in the 90s, right? Early 90s. But because I graduated from the UK, so that kind of put a lot of pressure on me just to, do something here in Bahrain. I could have stayed in the UK, and I actually was approached when I finished my degree there, just to remain in the UK. But I actually wanted to come back to Bahrain and be part of this fascinating nation. But back then, obviously, things were different. A lot of opportunities, and probably if I graduated today, my vision will be different. I'll probably have much more global horizon on what I can do there. But I think back then, Bahrain was actually quite booming, and there was so many opportunities, specifically in banking. This is where I really wanted to kind of be. So that's what happened. So I graduated in 1991, but I studied in normal government schools here in Bahrain.
MashaAllah
and then I went to Newcastle. That's where my first landed in Newcastle. I just had some friends and some family members were in there, so that's where I started my education, and I then moved to Wales, and then eventually I ended up in Huddersfield University, and that's where I completed my degree. So I was actually associated with Babco at the time, but I did engineering systems, computing, and control, and I was an instrument engineer for a while, and then, unfortunately, that didn't click in what I really wanted to do at that time. My passion was more into computers and digital electronics rather than oil and gas and instrumentation. So I had an opportunity with Gulf Business Machines, which is IBM.
Yes.
At the time, and it was the right time because early 90s, the Gulf War was just
with
over,
Kuwait,
and it was booming in terms of rebuilding Kuwait. So I was in Kuwait for a number of months, just rebuilding some of their infrastructure when it comes to computers. And then I moved into UAE, working with various government, again within IBM, but again, installing systems.
Let me interrupt you so we can go by piece by piece
Sure.
by piece. With the 90s, especially with the dot-com bubble just happening or just in the midst of it, was it very difficult to convince a lot of people who are restructuring right now Kuwait to say, hey, you know what, the internet is the future? or
No, but see, the internet wasn't there yet, right? This is 91, 92.
two? Okay.
So, nobody heard of the internet yet. It was 1995 when the internet really became synonymous.
Mainstream.
Mainstream. So at that time, it was just before the. There were some people talking about it, but it wasn't really, a well-known kind of technology at the time. It was until 95, but then I was in a different world then.
Yeah.
This is just much earlier in the career. But then I moved into the UAE and I spent about 7 months there, again working on various projects for IBM. Then I moved to Oman after that, and I stayed for about a year, again with IBM. But then I got a great opportunity to move into banking, and that was where my passion was. So I moved to Investcorp Bank back in 1995, and I was with them till 2007. So I spent about 12 years. And actually, my time at Investcorp shaped my future because they were ahead of every other banks in Bahrain in terms of technology, in terms of their
infrastructure.
The corporate world wasn't really well established back then, but Investcorp had a very advanced corporate structure, right? They had offices in London and New York and Bahrain, so they were very much advanced in how they ran their business at then. And it was fascinating.
At that point, was banking still separated here in Bahrain between personal finances and investment banking?
Well, investment wasn't really a big thing. Investcorp was the first bank to introduce investment banking. Right?
Okay.
So investment wasn't really a big thing. So Investcorp took the lead in terms of really spreading the investment kind
opportunities
for investors in the region. So it was fascinating. It was a very big name, and I was very, very excited to join that organization. And I was right, from my experience at the bank back then. So it was very, very reputed location, and I learned a lot, and I built a lot of knowledge, which even till today, I am actually benefiting from that. To be honest,
I imagine
it shaped my career.
I imagine.
Yeah.
And then how did you then go into consulting at some point?
Well, that was much more later.
Sure.
But then in 2007, I found myself probably cornered, and I couldn't move up, and I couldn't move left or right.
Yeah.
This is the advice I want to give to various people who are going through their mid-career. Don't stay. I mean, even if it's a fantastic place and you love, and you find yourself stuck, just make a move. In my world, and in Arabic we say, when you move, كل حركة فيها بركة. If you move, there's always something there for you. If one door closes, the multiple doors will open. That's the positivity I want to spread. And a very positive person by nature.
Of course, you can tell.
I can reflect that. A very positive, very optimistic person. So I said, look, I mean, I can't continue here. I took a decision to move to Bank Muscat International as a slightly higher position. But that wasn't really the reason. I'm not really someone who's looking for positions. I'm more of someone who's looking for challenges.
Cheers.
So I'm a challenge guy. I hate to be kept in an operational environment. It kills my passion and career actually. So I had an opportunity and I moved there. They were transforming the bank at the time. And I said, wow, this is fascinating. So I jumped in. Although I took one step back so that I can really jump higher. Really, that's the whole idea. So I actually kickstarted the transformation for the bank at that time, back in 2007, 2008. And I actually managed to do an architecture for the bank, which they're still using today. I'm very proud of it. And I think even after the merger with As-Salam, I think some of the technology, which I have basically planned back then, is still being used.
Oh, that's
like,
fantastic.
for example, their core banking system, the Temenos 24 is called. It's still being used, so which is really fascinating. I hope they're still using it. But it was good experience. But then in 2008, a friend of mine who was heading Bahrain Mumtalakat holding company called me. Talal Zain, I think he's a very well-known personality, and I love him. He's a very close friend and a very fantastic personality in Bahrain. So he called me if I could maybe join Mumtalakat to lead some major projects for the entities owned by Mumtalakat. Again, that's yet another challenge. It's a much bigger challenge. And this is what I love to do. And I jumped in, obviously. And I was with them for about 4.5 years.
And what do you feel like gave you that opportunity? Do you feel the reputation that you carried throughout your career, that you were the kind of individual and saying, hey, you know what, guys, I'm happy to be challenged. I'm happy to work on bigger projects?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question, Hamad, on that. I think if you're a person who is a relaxed and someone who just likes to live a normal life, then probably you won't be noticed. If you're someone who is always looking for challenges and you show it, right, and you're successful projects and successful activities, people will notice that, right?
And how much is failure part of your success?
Oh, failure is very important. I think
because I'm just assuming that a lot of people are listening right now.
Yeah.
They're going to go through their head saying, hey, you know what? I would love to one day get these kind of opportunities. How could I, make myself aware? How can I show to people in the industry and being like, listen, I'm willing to work. I'm willing to dream. I'm willing to go bigger. But at the same time, they have that fear of failure going, you know what? What happens if I fail? What happens if I become infamous?
Yeah. Well, I hate failures.
Who doesn't?
I hate failures, but this is the reality. I think so many quotes, right, saying, "Look, if you don't fail, then you can't succeed." So I think failure is part of the learning process. As long as you get up and jump up and learn from that failure, right? I think you won't benefit from it. Some people fail and that's it, and they don't really wish to regain strength to do better. But that's not me. I think the advice I want to give is, like, if you fail, I think it's quite normal. I think I have failed in many, for example, in my A-levels back then, I did so bad. I was really like an A-star student in Bahrain, and then I go to the UK and I fail. I mean,
I feel your pain.
It was bad. It was really bad. But then, did I stop there? No. I had to jump and fight, and I managed to get into university. Right? There's various ways, and I did very well after that. Right? So failure is part of the learning and the building of the career. I think is very important. It's just don't fail and stay and become extremely pessimistic. There's huge pessimism in Bahrain at the moment, and negativity in Bahrain is horrendous. When I talk to people, especially those who have retired, I said, guys, don't spread negativity around. You should be positive.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that's it for them. People, that's it. The career is over, and they instead of maybe encouraging people and inspiring people, I see a lot of negativity in the air, and this is really daunting. I see it on social media, on WhatsApp groups, and I jump in. I'm very well known and keeping people quiet when it comes to spreading negativity, as if the whole world is over.
It's doom and gloom. I think
Absolutely.
I think it's a social media aspect again. It only brings out the worst. And I think human brains are programmed almost to see negativity more than positivity, just because whatever is negative could be a threat to your life. Therefore, from a survivability, from evolutionary biology perspective, I think that's why our brain is so driven and being like, oh God, there is something there. What is going to happen with the environment? What's going to happen with the economy? I think that's the reason why. And I think it takes a lot of character and a lot of self-discipline to be like, hey, you know what? This is the negativities. That is what it is. But here's how we can build from it. Here's how we can improve from it. But a lot of people just get stuck in the bottom.
Exactly. And that's it. I mean, because of the nature of Bahrain being a small country, that's probably contributing to that as well. And people are not really seeing what's happening outside the world. And I always say to people, you guys need to travel. Just go to Hong Kong. You'll have a completely different perspective of life just by being in a large, active, vibrant countries. You say, oh, okay, this is not the whole world is not just Bahrain, right? It's a fantastic, beautiful country, but there's a lot more going on outside in the world than what's happening in Bahrain. Yeah, so that's what my advice, I think. So really, I then continued to be with Mumtalakat. It was a fantastic, probably one of my kind of most enjoyable period of my career, I think. Be part of the Bahraini kind of owned entities and Bahraini owned investments. And that's really fascinated me. It was like a national duty, right? Like national responsibility to be part of that and try and build some sort of an economy based on that. So I was very much involved in establishing a framework for all the government-owned entities, the likes of Petelco and Alba and Gulfair, National Bank of Bahrain. These are all entities owned, or at least partially owned by the government of Bahrain. So I was involved in all these companies to try and create some sort of a framework.
I've met GC a few times, by the way.
Pardon?
I met JC a few times, by the way.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
the CEO from Mumtalakat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's supposed to come on as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he'll share some really good ideas.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating.
It's fascinating how a French man somehow ended up in Bahrain
Yes.
working for Mumtalakat,
well.
of all things.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's a great company. I think there was a lot that we've done with them when I was at Mumtalakat. And then I decided to move into consultancies in 2012. I basically established a platform. I completed an infrastructure when it comes to their ERP, which is the enterprise resource planning system for the financial for the entire company. And then this is where I reached another level of saying, oh, you know what, this is the time. So when things turn to operational, this is where I don't really shine. I don't really deliver. And I'm not that person that really try and relax. I think I always say, look, until you really can't do anything, I think you should always keep learning and keep delivering.
1% better every time, right?
Absolutely.
Every day you wake up and try to do 1% better.
Yeah. But then I moved into consultancies for a couple of years until I was approached by one of my friends at Yusuf bin Ahmed Kano, which is a very large family business in Bahrain here. And I joined that company to kind of develop their technology business, still within a consultancy role.
Framework, yeah.
But then somehow I was pulled into the operation because the company needed a complete digital transformation back in 2013-14. And I was pulled into that internally. And I became part of the company, part of the group.
How did that discussion go? Were you feeling dread and going like, oh God, I'm not sure. Do I really want to give up being a consultant? Or are you like, you know what, I can settle, I can do this. And
tell you what, Hamid, I think, look, if the challenge was not that great, I wouldn't have taken it. It's just the challenge was enormous. A company of over 3,500 people spread across the region, the Middle East actually, with nothing really. It's greenfield for someone with a technology background. To me, this is heaven.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do. And the challenge was because I've never had an experience with a family-run business. My entire experience was with a corporate world,
answering
banking,
to shareholders.
yeah,
absolutely.
In regulated companies. I was coming from that kind of environment into a family-owned business. That's by itself is a challenge. There's so many, again, being part of the Bahraini culture, there's so many, family relations that you need to basically watch out for and be part of. Really,
I can imagine.
So I think that's what attracted me into it, and I was so lucky to convince the family, the great family of Kanu, to spend and to invest in the technology back then, 2014-15, which they have absolutely, thankful for listening and
especially during COVID, I can imagine.
So
my
much.
God, yeah, absolutely, especially.
Yeah. So they were a bit ahead of their
competitors in the rest of the
peers in
industry.
terms of family businesses. Well, we have a number of family businesses when it comes to the kind of infrastructure that they built we built back in 2015-16.
So let me ask you, when you first went and transformed the whole banking investment world, were you selling indexes and funds, or were you just opening up trying to sell bonds? Were you just saying like, hey, you know what, let's get started selling shares, let's get started and finding the general investor, the general citizen, and convincing them, saying, hey, you know what, invest?
Yeah, you're talking about Investcorp here, right?
Sure.
No, Investcorp obviously does alternative investments. So basically they buy companies at that time specifically in North America and Europe. Those are the only two regions that they were investing in. So they basically scan for companies that are in a growth mode, or companies that are going through trouble, but have great potential.
Okay, so the Warren Buffett approach, where you guys looking for value rather than growth.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Absolutely. So they would buy a company. And then what happened with their own money, with their own funds, right?
Sure.
And they bring it to this region.
Sure.
And they look for investors in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE.
Fantastic.
And they would actually sell up 90% of that company, and they keep 10% for their own staff and own management.
Fantastic.
Right. So the management would work very hard to ensure that the company flourishes because there's a stake for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is the formula. And hopefully within 4 or 5 years, the company would transform and would improve in terms of valuation, and then they would sell it again. Usually they would exit from companies around 5 years.
Okay.
And hopefully they will get back some revenue and cash rewards to their investors and to their management.
And
this is the model. This is the
and how long
model.
was the process in order to find a company? Anywhere between 6 months to a year, I imagine.
Every year they would scan like hundreds. I would
Sure.
say almost 700-800 companies a year.
Oh wow!
And then they would pick like 3-4 companies.
Oh wow!
That's
Oh
it.
wow! That's a lot of data analytics to work.
Yeah, they have a huge team, and even today, based in New York, the other company, the other office is in London. So, and they do the similar things, and they would work with their colleagues here in Bahrain, and then they would market those companies. Now, today the bank has completely changed. That's definitely going business. But they have so many other businesses like funds, for example. They have established funds. They're into real estate,
portfolios,
equities.
Yeah.
So they have multiple instruments today.
But because I'm really fascinated, because right now, sadly, a lot of international investors are what's the right word? Are attracted by the shine and the glamour of a lot of American, European companies, especially when it comes to anything like a unicorn business, where they're hoping that they're going to get some sort of a multiple of 700, 1,000, They're all hoping that they'll find the next Uber. They're all hoping that they'll find the next, Tesla. And I think it's a shame that not enough VCs take the necessary fund to invest rather into the region. Right? I mean, we have a few startups. We have some interesting companies coming about, but it's sadly we're still lagging in a lot of ways behind. Like, there's no reason why there isn't a Middle Eastern Netflix. There is one, OSN, which is owned by Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, which is the closest similarity. But there's not one.
I mean, you have Noon, right? Noon is obviously competing with Amazon.
Sure.
So that's an example of maybe companies that want to basically replicate the successful model of global companies. I think you're right. I mean, maybe the numbers are not really that good, but there are emerging brands that resemble or perform similar businesses to what's been successful in the U.S.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with that the numbers aren't necessarily so good. I mean, Alibaba trades at a multiple of I think 10 or 9, where you have Amazon that trades at a multiple of almost 30, right? There's no justification on that share price. There's no justification on why Tesla should be valued higher than General Motors, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the trick of Wall Street, and I think that hopefully in the future we'll see more necessary projects initiating from the Middle East. There was a company that duplicated Amazon's approach. I forgot the name of it. Desert or something like that. It was a Desert Card. No, there was another one called Souk, I think.
Oh, Souk.
And that was bought up by Amazon.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Souk.com. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there is I think there is a challenge for these companies that they don't get bought up by Western market, right?
Well, you have Kareem as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kareem is another example.
Yeah.
So there are some companies, but I mean, you're right. I mean, there are not really that many that can benefit from the successful model of Silicon Valley. So I think the opportunities are there. I think in this part of the world, but it just needs people to basically have the faith in developing them.
Absolutely.
Really.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So basically back to what I've been doing, and quite recently I've been asked to develop the technology business. Again, the Kano group is platforms have been established and everything is stable. And again, there we go, another chance to move over and into more challenging activities, and that's what I'm doing today. So basically, I kind of, because probably with my long time spent in technology, so you become kind of sort of
jaded.
Yeah, and also more of I wouldn't say expert, but actually more knowledgeable of really the underlying issues. So for example, a lot of people today don't realize how serious having an environment, a technology environment, without having any protection, any security. So, right?
Oh boy,
So this has really caught my eye, and I think, as I said, I mean, I once met a director within the Kano family who was refusing to move to the cloud At the time, I was trying to promote Microsoft 365, which is a cloud email system, as you know. So he's refusing. He says, "Oh, Jameel, no way I can. I don't have any social media accounts. I don't have any email accounts. I like to keep my emails here next to me, next door in my data center." And I said, "Look, what phone are you using?" He said, "I'm using a Samsung." I said, "Bingo, there you go. So you're already on the cloud." I mean, so long gone the days where you say, "I would just want to be locked in one room." So you have to expose yourself to some extent, and in doing so, there is the issues, right? That's where the issue starts. People don't realize how serious this is. So this particular area, which is cybersecurity, it caught my attention probably 3 years ago. I was just doing some various projects for the company, and I said, "Look, oh boy, I mean, there's a huge understatement, underestimation of the seriousness of this issue, right? Cybersecurity." And this was, again, 3 years, 4 years. This is before even people, became synonymous with ransomware attacks. This is quite recent. Now people are probably know this.
And if you don't mind me interrupting, I recently read from, I don't remember which journal entry it was. Maybe it was Ing or another magazine. And it mentioned that most cyberware attacks that happen on firms for ransacking don't actually get reported.
Absolutely.
Which is even scarier, right?
Yes.
So there's no even a record of it being kept.
Yes, absolutely. You see, the issues with technology, and this is where when I sit with executives and boards, and this is what I say to them: look, guys, your company will be in one of these three states, right? It's either you've been hacked in the past, your network, your systems have been hacked in the past, and you know about it, and you've done whatever you could to kind of overcome that problem, or you're being hacked as we speak, but you don't know this. You are being hacked, your systems are being accessed, but you don't know this because it's very silent, very undercover kind of operation, or you will be hacked in the future.
Yeah, you're already either in one three states. Yeah,
it's one of these three. So what's the solution? The solution is really to keep raising your fence and hoping that nothing will happen. And the reason for that is, Hamad, because it takes about 245 days for a company to discover a hack. 245. That means someone from China, from Russia, my full respect to these countries, obviously, have fascinating people, but obviously,
or a competitor, but you don't know.
Most of the attacks seems to be coming from from these two destinations, and they will probably be around on the network, playing around, posting and positioning various sleeping cells, and you don't know when these will wake up. And when they wake up, they'll start to create damage. So what's the solution? The solution is basically to keep upgrading and making sure that your systems, your network, your computers, all protected against these attacks.
How much of the truth do you believe, coming from the technology field and from cybersecurity, is that the biggest problem is the end user? From phishing attacks?
70%.
70%, yeah?
70%. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know the man, he came up with that antivirus software, McAfee.
McAfee.
McAfee?
McAfee, yeah.
He explained that one of the things he would do was social engineering, where he would actually look up the secretaries for these. I'm not sure if I should, cut this part out because I don't want to spread this information. And so what he would do, he would contact the secretaries for high position, whether it be government or from personal companies, blah, blah, blah. And he would message them on Instagram, make a fake account, like a winning or whatever, and saying, congratulations, you won a free laptop. Congratulations, you won a phone. Congratulations, you won a laptop. And somewhere around 40 to 60% of people were just so happy that they won something that they got a device that was full of malware. Yeah. And most of these people obviously have the accounts of their bosses, managing calendars, managing email addresses. And that's how he had that huge abundance of access to hundreds of companies and into embassies even.
Absolutely.
So
social engineering, which is really compromising your own employees. That's what social engineering means. Is the ability to basically, access your staff. Okay, pretending to be someone that they know. Okay, that's social engineering, and you can do a lot of damage by doing this. This is one of the most dangerous mechanisms to attack an organization is through social engineering. So, look, I think companies and sectors. I mean, I would say in Bahrain here and probably globally, the three major sectors are really impacted. The government, obviously, government sectors are one of the largest,
especially for hostile nations or whatever.
Absolutely, that's number one. Second is financial institutions,
of course,
and then third is education. Right, those are the three sectors that are being kind of attacked regularly. Now the thing is, a lot of companies today have realized, right, that the investment they put in ensuring that they have a proper protection, proper defenses, right, is growing, right? There's a lot of awareness happening. The issue is, I see a lot of sectors are still, they don't care basically. Healthcare, for example. Even today, healthcare doesn't seem to worry about attacks. And unfortunately, the regulatory bodies around the world, not just Bahrain, they have some new regulations, but they're not that stringent compared, for example, to the financial. Now, we look at the Central Bank of Bahrain, for example, right? They have regulations on all the banks to conduct regular testing and what's called penetration testing to simulate attacks, to make sure that they're protected. This is part of their regular activities, right? Disaster recovery operation, simulation of attacks, what's called
data
phishing.
Recoveries.
Absolutely. So it's part of the regulation. They have to do it. But when you look at other sectors in the region or globally, they're not really that much regulated, and there are not many policies to ensure that these companies and these sectors, follow the financial and the government. So that's one of the problems, I think, which is lack of regulations.
Do you believe that first an attack has to happen at a scale for them to be like, oh, whoa, we need to invest? Because sadly, most cases, especially in the business world and as human beings, we often always do things in hindsight rather than in foresight.
No question, Hamad. I think one of the reasons why organizations who are not regulated to really wake up and invest is, when they get an attack. But then it's too late. I know several cases in Bahrain, actually, but they are not really announced. But several cases where they really got a hit, either through ransomware or through disruption of operations, not necessarily financial, right? There could be a disruption of an operation, and you have to basically then dig out your paper and go back to manual ways of running your business. Imagine. Right, in today's day and age. So I think there should be some awareness. I think the problem is no matter how much awareness you do, there's still lack of belief and trust until something happens. Right, with the exception of the financial sector, because they are regulated, they have no option but to comply with the regulation of CBD.
You make a really interesting point, because there is a famous consultant. He worked for New York Times. His name is Scott Galloway, and he has this theory of doing a perp walk. So he always advises company to hire an actor, especially larger companies, and every 6 months every 2-3 years, just have an actor come in for 1 or 2 days that they're working, and then do a perp walk with him leaving.
Okay.
Just to scare all the staff, and for anyone who slipped by the vetting process, who's up to negative activities, that they're then frightened away.
Absolutely. Yes. So various kind of actions that companies are taking. But I think most of what I've seen coming recently is there are companies who would simulate attacks, and that's becoming now a normal thing. So you would actually, for example, send that email with the winning the lottery. Okay, they will simulate that internally, and they see what is the response from their staff. And they would actually reply back, say, well, sorry, you basically shouldn't have clicked on this. It's okay, nothing has happened, but make sure next time you watch out for this. So they give that kind of awareness to their employees and staff to be more vigilant against these what's called phishing attack. Phishing is obviously the ability to simulate someone that you know.
Absolutely.
Right? So I could receive an email from Hamad or someone pretending to be Hamad and is asking me for some cash or some
or double A. That's
right.
Yeah, that's very common. That's so
basically
common.
called phishing, right?
Absolutely.
So basically tricking people to think that they are, coming from someone else.
In fact, there was a famous case with Elon Musk.
Oh yeah.
Where somebody made a fake email address that was just basically a tunnel, and he was sending these emails to execs in the company asking them what their financial forecast was. Thank God they caught him.
Yeah.
And so they went to court over it.
Absolutely, there's so many stories, Hamad. I mean, but again, the world is becoming more aware of the dangers, and I think companies and the corporate world has started to really recognize the dangers and do some proactive work to avoid being caught in a ransomware attack or in a phishing attack, or the likes of complete disruption of their operations. So they are learning, I would say.
I mean, in fact, I know that especially with Apple, the case has become that what's the name of the CEO, guys, again? Tim Cook. Thank you.
Tim Cook, yes.
That Tim Cook isn't allowed to fly anymore on public aircrafts.
Okay.
Just because the value that he carries
Yes.
on his devices. Yeah. So
It's more than
the cost of the plane, and so the board has decided that he has to only be flying private now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And they take it from his pay cut, by the way.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. So really, this is the story. So as I said, I mean, today I'm more involved in developing business opportunities and specifically in the world of digital security. That's where I think because what happened since my early days, technology has changed so much. Today,
of course.
Companies do not have any machines, any servers, any machines local, right? Everything is moved to the cloud. So the focus on technology has changed from having a team of people looking after some machines into very bright and talented people enabling the business.
Well, when you came back to the Middle East, that must have been just when GUI had started becoming
Oh, yes.
accessible.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh,
Before then was
absolutely.
just point and click.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
I can't even
Yes.
imagine
Yes.
to convince people at that point in time
Yes.
and being like, you know what, this is
Yes.
all going to be different.
No. I lived the Windows NT world and the Windows 95. All these,
It's-
probably haven't heard of them, but they're there. But
I grew up in Saudi Arabia. My dad was a big computer guy, so he had these floppy disks that were huge.
Yeah, well, I didn't live those days. I kind of more of the smaller ones, but I still lived the days where the smaller floppies there, and then quickly moved into CDs after that. So this was the period I'm more active.
You know what I find absolutely fascinating is that the new employees that me and you are hiring at this point, especially with Kanu, they don't know what the icon of save, where that comes from. They've never seen a floppy disk.
Absolutely,
Right?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Hamid. I think you're right. Yeah.
Or-
They've
or-
never seen a
Or
floppy.
why the phone icon looks
Yes.
like a phone, right?
Absolutely.
It's fascinating.
Yes, and I lived obviously days where the modems. Remember?
Yes,
I don't know if
yes,
you
yes,
were
yes,
Back
yes,
in '96,
yes.
'7, we have to dial in and
Yes.
wait, and if you're lucky, you can get connected.
And the era of forms as
Oh,
well.
Yes. Oh yes. These are good days, good, fascinating. I mean, but obviously things have changed today. Obviously, there's so much in technology. I think the younger generation. They have a fascinating world of technology I think they can play with today.
Do you not feel that technology has though become almost not just app centric but company centric? Like everyone either accesses Instagram or Google.
Yeah.
I think what is it, like 95 or 96% of web searches go through Google?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think to be attached to a specific company, if it's really doing good, why not? I don't see it a problem. I know Apple, for example, they work on kids at a very young age to basically build the brand, right?
By the way, sorry to interrupt you, but do you know that most execs at Apple don't allow their kids to play with their devices?
Really? No, I never knew that. Right? Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, see, that's another thing. Well, you know what? I kind of had a session with. I was invited to an event by Dell. Global. That was back in 2010, I think. And I had the opportunity to have dinner next to Michael Dell, right next to me. And back then, he was holding a BlackBerry, It was during the BlackBerry days. So I was having conversation, and I said, "So Michael, how often do you? I mean, do you let your children to be 24/7 on their
Devices.
mobile devices?" He told me actually no way. So he said he only kind of allow his kids to work for a number of hours, and then he has like a schedule for a couple of hours a night, and then they have to switch off their mobiles. I said, oh, someone like that, we should learn from them, right? So it was, that kind of gave me a wake-up call back then to really make sure that my children don't actually work 24/7 on these mobile devices.
He has a fascinating story. I remember reading in an interview with him that when the iPhone, the first generation came out, before it even had a 3G model, there were in talks actually with Intel to produce the chips for the CPU, right? Apple was set at a certain price, and Intel it didn't work out. The price just weren't meeting. So the CEO at the time, he felt in his gut saying, he knew that he should take that contract,
right?
But he couldn't convince the board to accept it. So it passed up that opportunity. So obviously, in hindsight in 2020, they did the iPhone did way better than their estimates.
Yeah.
They could have made the numbers work if they really tried. And
absolutely.
So the whole argument at the article was saying also, even when something doesn't match from a numbers perspective, if your instincts as a businessman is telling you should more often than not take that chance.
Oh, absolutely. I think as I said, I mean these brands will definitely try and develop a brand loyalty at a very young age, and it's by nature. But to be honest, I mean, I don't see it a problem. As long as it's helping the younger generation be fascinated about technology and be passionate about technology. I think
and to bring it in, to cybersecurity, I think that's the same case with cybersecurity. Is that a lot of people see it from a financial perspective, saying like, oh, is it necessary? Does the numbers make sense? Although internally they know, if something does happen, it's going to cost us X multiple more.
Exactly. I think this is one of the reasons that is putting people off from being proactive when it comes to cybersecurity protection. And it's basically, is it worth the investment? Does nothing happen? We've never had any attacks for the last 20 years. Why would an attack happen next month? You see, so they basically measure their investment based on their experience. Oh, we've never had an issue. But the problem is they don't know that they had an issue. This is what I'm saying. Being in technology, you don't know that you've been attacked, you see, and you don't know when it's going to hit you. So that's why I think many companies are becoming aware of this problem, and they are really investing in raising the bar and increasing, the defense. That's the only thing you can do, really, because whenever you increase your defense, those hackers will go even higher. They're very smart people.
Sure.
So they'll always go higher. So you have to keep,
it becomes a spending
them.
game.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. That's what it is.
And eventually you hope you reach a situation where for the hackers it's so expensive and the returns are so little that it doesn't.
It becomes worth it. It doesn't worth it. You're
right. So that's what you eventually hope to hit that medium ground. Yeah. But what do you think of the whole blockchain with security? Do you think there is a connection between the two, or do you think it's just vapeware at the moment?
No, it's good. That's the future. You can't stop it. There's a whole technology, obviously, industry based on it. All the cryptocurrencies, obviously, as you know, is based on the blockchain, and there are so many good applications for it. And I think one day it will sort of dominate the world of communication, secure communication. Today, I'm not sure if you know this, but there are actually groups of similar businesses that are communicating on blockchains. For example, shipping industry, right? So you have a group of ship liners, the companies that own these large ships, right? For the
transportation
shipping.
of goods.
Yeah. So there's a lot of communication that goes between those companies, and the ports, authorities, and agents. So they're basically using blockchains, private blockchains, to communicate securely, right? So without any disruption to the communication. It's very similar to in banking, you have SWIFT, for example. If you're familiar with the banking industry, they have SWIFT for years. It's very protected kind of messaging platform. Similarly, for the shipping, they're using blockchain today to exchange secured messages. So the world is moving towards blockchain. It's definitely happening. It just requires a lot of sort of agreements between different groupings of related sort of companies. So you have, for example, in shipping, you only have like 4 or 5 companies getting together and creating a private blockchain network. But then if you're not part of those 5, then you cannot basically
enter
participate.
it.
It's just like a WhatsApp group. So basically they're creating WhatsApp groups, and it's only them they can see and message each other. That's what it is. It's a WhatsApp group.
That's a wonderful example.
Oh yes. If you're not part of the WhatsApp group, then you're not able. So that kind of, you need to maximize the group to make it even more accessible to many people and many companies, to make the blockchain worthwhile.
But by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but for the last, I think, 5 or 8 years of WhatsApp now being owned by Meta, because they never encrypted their server for a very long time. They only encrypted it 2 years ago.
Correct.
The way group chats would work would be based on a URL address.
Correct.
So people were able to find URL addresses for very high VPs, and then had access to all these group chats, and were just able to funnel that data and information.
Absolutely.
So there's always ways for attacks, and thank God now Facebook has clamped down on that.
Exactly, but it goes back to security, right? How people should be aware that, look, I mean, you're part of a network. If you own a mobile phone, you're already on a network. You know, somehow you could be attacked. You don't know this, but you could, through your mobile, people can access your bank, right? So it is quite dangerous. I think the only advice that I want to give is people need to be vigilant. That as much as you can protect yourself, but you need to use common sense at certain times, right? To say, if Hamad is sending me a message after I leave, oh, can you just, by the way, I need 500 dinars because I need to buy a TV, wonderful. Then I have to be careful, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, I have to be vigilant. Oh, no, I just met Hamad. Cannot be Hamad, right? But be someone else who's hacked Hamad's, So things like that needs to be really...
Famously was on Facebook, where they would attack, they would usually attack the older generation. People would just usually share their recipes, and they would say, they're their grandson or granddaughter. Yes. Or the old proverb with the I'm a prince from Nigeria.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm not sure. There still seems to be coming for some reason. These guys in Nigeria don't believe that the world is now aware of the problem. They still seem to be active for some reason.
But I spoke to a mathematician about this problem, and he made a very interesting point. He said that the message is so ridiculous, doesn't matter. Because the people who are affected are the most gullible.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely.
And exactly. And so it's just a numbers game of sending it out.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And instead of making the story most believable.
You don't believe, but some people will actually fall in the trap, unfortunately. They will catch some people.
Absolutely.
It's quite unfortunate.
Absolutely. It's sad, but it is what it is. So do you see yourself introducing blockchain now into Bahrain?
I think it's already there, right? I think some...
I know that Bahrain was talking about digitizing a currency with the dinar somehow being a crypto dinar. It's been in talks, but no one has said anything about it.
See, sorry, you asked for blockchain here, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think the government was looking into blockchain at some point in time. All the ministries today, obviously there is an existing network where ministries and government entities can communicate. I believe the government was looking into introducing this through the IGA, which is the e-government of Bahrain. So I'm not sure how far they've been to. I'm not really in touch directly with Ustad Mohammed Al-Qaid. He's in charge of the e-government. But I think there has been some discussions on introducing blockchain for the government, and that will really set the scene for all other industries within Bahrain.
Absolutely. I spoke to a few consultants who went for meetings, and they came back and said, you know what, this might be was what we see the future. Some of them have been trying to say that NFTs might be a part of that, but in what capacity, no one knows. A lot of people have been talking about it, using it for real estate, crypto with an NFT,
Yeah, as I said before, Hamad, I mean,
sure.
The way the crypto, again, blockchain works is the adoption of it, right? If there are similar
standards
businesses that can work around a kind of a blockchain platform, then this is really achieve the maximum benefit. Just as mentioned, the WhatsApp group. So the more related people, relatives, friends, school friends. You see, these are all groupings. They can share a common, group based on cryptocurrencies. Sorry, based on blockchain.
Blockchain.
Yeah, obviously, that's where I see the maximum benefit, and it's gonna hit us one day.
I think so
now
as well.
the thing is, whether as a consumer would be able to tell that you are actually using a blockchain or not, this is a different matter.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to the first question you asked me on the phone regarding AI, right?
Yeah.
The application.
Oh, we can go into it, absolutely.
The application of AI and virtual reality and all these really nice buzzwords. I think it took longer than what I thought would be realistic to kind of blend into our lifestyle, right? So what I mean by that, obviously, is if you just treat AI as a technical term or as a technology, then probably it's difficult to apply it in various industries. But I think if you're able to blend it right into a normal process that happens between a consumer and a service provider, right? This is where actually it creates the maximum value.
I think so as well.
This actually is very similar to the bot chat, right? The chatbots, right? This is, again, when they first started, people were fascinated. I said, oh, you know what? This is really fantastic. But then people realize, oh, it's just a machine talking to me, right? And most of the times, actually, it's quite a stupid machine. Again, it's not answering my questions correctly.
By the way, have you seen the one from 2017 with Google where they
I think I've seen it.
Isn't that terrifying?
Yeah,
they interviewed, they used obviously the best sample cases, but they had 3 or 4 people and they had no awareness that who's calling them is a computer.
Yes, it is. So I think, again, the application of these technologies, okay, I think if you just apply them as a standalone, then they won't work, right? People have been talking about AI for years now, right? But how much of that has been really blended into a normal person or a sector or a business or industry is questionable, right? Again, you have the question of IoT, right? The Internet of Things, right? So, people might be already using this technology, but they're not realizing it, and this is beautiful. For example, if you just bought a fridge recently, a Samsung fridge, right? You might not realize it or know it, but it may already have an
smart
IoT
features.
or an artificial intelligence in it, an AI components, but you don't realize, and that's beautiful. It's still a fridge, but there's so many things going on in that fridge to simplify your life, to make your life better.
No, I totally agree. I think the capacity of where it's heading is up to grabs. A lot of people have this notion about sentient AIs. Whether or not that's achievable metaphysically, physically, how we would deem them as a rather as an entity or not. I mean, these are philosophical and moral questions, right? You had that case with Google where the engineer claims that that's an AI is sentient, and I'm on the fence. I think that seems very much like a marketing thing. Google saying our AIs are so good they trick their engineers.
Yeah.
So there is that section of it, and I think people are also worried about what the capacity of AI means at large scales, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll do best decision for the consumer or for the company. Geneva, I think, have been talking about banning AI for defense forces, for example.
Okay.
It's a complicated question.
Exactly. That's what I said. I mean, obviously, Google in every sort of conference and every event, they always talk about AI. And the way they've done it actually is they've now included AI in every application, the camera, the search engine on your phone. So your phone actually, if you're using a Google phone, it has a built-in AI engine. But you don't realize it. As a user, you're just using your phone as normal. This is beautiful, right? So if you want people to wear these VR, virtual reality, screens, and you expect them to use them around, I think that's wrong. The idea is, can you use virtual reality in a way that it's not that intrusive to your life by wearing
frictionless.
Absolutely, that's exactly the word I was looking for. The ability to sneak in a technology without a user or a human being realizes it.
So again, Scott Galloway makes an interesting point in his book, the four, and he talks about that Amazon is going to get a point with their data analytics and their AI that they will be able to order you things without you ordering them, and then you just having to send back the things that you don't want.
Absolutely.
Right? And completely a frictionless process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what we're going to see in the future of how that's going to work.
This is when actually all these technologies come together, right? And seamlessly, without any intrusion to a person's ability to comprehend and understand these technologies, right? This is where I see a successful application of these technologies. Yes, I think answer to your question, yes, AI will stay with us. It's going to even do more. But I think it will do it in a very a kind of hidden way, rather than being so visible to a normal human.
So what would you say to people who are right now just finishing their college degrees or university thinking of getting into work? Are you saying, hey, you know what, go into securities, go into banking, go into cyberware security? Or are you saying, hey, you know what, probably being AI researcher right now? What do you think that hill has passed and now we're moving on to the next thing?
Well, believe it or not, I think, to be honest, there are so many fields of studies that have been neglected because of these new modern fields. Mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers. Those, you don't hear people talking about these anymore. It's very few people that have really
blue-collar work, yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just everybody wants to do computer science. Everybody seems to be doing, finance. So there are so many fields where I think there's still some way to really look carefully into them, and maybe a person would have an interest in these fields. I mean, having said that, obviously everything today, every field of studies you pick will depend so much on technology. Medicine, history, humanities, economics, you must have some level of programming, some level of hardware understanding. Everything is based on technology. You can't hide from it.
No, I totally agree with you. What is really interesting, I remember reading in Nature, the publication, they said that right now application counts for males in universities are actually dropping because so many of them are going to trade schools to become electricians, plumbers, engineers. I mean, an electrician right now in the UK can earn £120,000.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like almost 60,000 BD. Yeah. And if you're deep sea welder, your salary can be up to $500,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, Hamid, I think 5 years from now, people graduating from medical schools will be really software engineers.
Yeah, totally agree.
Because by then, if you combine all these technologies that we know about today, I mean, never mind those that we don't know about in the future, the ones like, AI, VR, IoT, all these technologies, right? They will be put in a way for a doctor not to be physically present in one location, but he'll be treating people, hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away, right? So he's sitting in Bahrain and he's controlling through a computer, through a program that he's written himself, an operating theater somewhere in India, somewhere in, I don't know,
Thailand, wherever.
Right? Sitting in Bahrain. The technology is available today. We mentioned blockchain that should provide the security to perform these operations so there's no one can intrude and disrupt a medical operation. You have robotics are coming a long way today. You have artificial intelligence, so probably 50% of the work that will be done by that doctor or surgeon will be done by artificial intelligence because it's repetitive, right? That artificial, actually that doctor should have trained a robot to do repetitive thing during the operation.
Stitching, maybe cutting open, whatever.
Absolutely. So he'll be monitoring it, all right? But he must have written that program. So you see, they're all software engineers. They're all programmers.
No, I agree.
So the world is going towards that. Yes, everything will be based on technology in any field you pick. But again, I mean, I don't think we should forget that for any new people coming, especially have a lot of people graduating this year from school, you should never discount the the traditional engineers, the chemical engineering and the civil engineering and the electrical. These are all fascinating fields which very much use technology. You're not really going away
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
technology.
You're not Stone Man. You're
Right. So you don't have to be a software or computer science engineer to be able to work in a bank or in a chemical plant or in an electric power station. So that's my advice.
No, I mean, I'm with you 100%. And I think that Murray's job is going to be replaced by a computer sooner or later because right now switching cameras by pressing a button on who's talking, right? So that's the next that's the next stage. Sorry to tell you, Murray, you're gonna have to retrain. You're gonna have to be a camera operator. But it is fascinating. It's so fascinating.
To be honest, Hamid, I think a lot of people are scared from being
made redundant,
replaced by computers. I don't think that's going to happen. I think human beings will become more intelligent, smarter. Their focus will be on things that are totally different from what they're doing today. And machines, computers, software will still be very much part of our life, but they will do things that human beings don't need to do.
My friend had a really great point, and he told me there is one job in the world that will never be replaceable, and it's not the job that you're thinking of. It's personal trainer. He said nobody wants to be told by a computer how to work out.
Well, you never know,
right? And I thought,
you never know.
Oh, I don't know. I think. Do you really want to be yelled at by a computer telling you do push-ups?
Well, you never know, Hamid. I mean, if that's if it's put in a way that is very effective, why not? If it's made into a hologram.
Sure. Oh, now you're talking. Now you're talking. Right? Absolutely.
What's called
Metaverse.
Metaverse, right? Could be a metaverse working. You don't know.
Are you invested in the metaverse?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you are looking into it.
I don't know, but at least the ones that Facebook or Meta showed. I didn't like the graphics. To me, it looks so premature. It's very. I don't know. I would have liked to see more.
Well, PlayStation 2, right? I mean, how many?
The graphics wasn't that as amusing to me. That's probably why it didn't capture my attention yet.
I mean, how many triangles did they use in the PlayStation 2? Like 230, something like that.
Probably.
Exactly, right? So I mean, it's going to take time, and sooner or later, I think it's going to be very, very real.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, there's still some negativity into it. I mean, whether we like it or not. Probably for people in our generation, we value personal, connections, right? And I can see it. I mean, the pandemic, the 2 years pandemic, have shown and many, kind of raised many issues. The lack of connection, personal connection, really made a big, huge impact on people's
depression, psyche,
well-being. Right, which proves that look, I mean, whatever we do in technology and artificial intelligence, you still need that human connection.
Well, can I ask, do you have any children, sir?
I do. Yeah.
Do you find them playing out with their friends, or is that, do you have to almost force them to get out of the house?
Well, to be honest, I have one son who's
okay.
He's just finished his GCSE.
Oh, mashallah!
Fashion.
Congratulations!
And thank you. And he's because of the pandemic. Yes, I think the answer, I had to push him.
Yeah.
I had to push him just to see his friends, and I think they're coming back now to normal. But my other children actually are a lot older. They're okay. I mean, they know but my son is I had to push him, especially at this very young age. The pandemic obviously confined them to one space. And then it will take time for them to readjust and become part of this community.
I totally agree. I mean, I recently read a study that this is in the Western world, though, that most people in between 20 to 25 don't have a single real friend, which is a scary statistic if you think about it, and that everything is just virtual. Yeah. And to me, Twitter and Instagram isn't a real place.
Yeah.
But people treat it almost like it's a real community, a real place.
Yeah, but what makes me a bit not worried, because my eldest son, Basil, he's 26, and oh man, he probably has hundreds of friends, and he's still in touch. He's living in New York at the moment. He's working in New York, but he's in touch with friends. He's going out. He's living like normal life that we all lived, right? In terms of human connection, friends, and social relationships. My daughter, again, same thing. I mean, she has, friends everywhere. So I'm not really that worried, but my younger son, I think it's just, I hope it's only a temporary situation because of the pandemic, but the older they grow, they realize the human connection, there's nothing, you cannot replace that. Whatever you do, no matter how much time you spend on staring at a screen, at the end of the day, there's still the human, touch and human connection what matters really.
I think so as well. I think that's why you found so many people who have gone through depression or had some wellness or mental issues after the whole situation of being almost for a year locked in four walls. I read another scary statistic that 96% of our lifespan is spent indoors.
Wow.
That is, if you think about it, I mean, 8 hours sleeping or 6 hours, however you sleep, and then 8 hours in an office.
Yes.
Right, that's already 2/3 of your day.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's even worse in Europe.
And I mean, in the Middle East, when do we go out in summer?
Oh yes, it's quite difficult, but still we still have the shisha and we still have the gawas and.
صح for ساعتين.
Still have that. So compared to maybe the same generations living in Europe today, probably we are much better off than them. I think it's a lot more difficult for them. Have a lot of people feeling extremely, lonely. There's a lot of issues about lonely people in the West compared to our culture here.
But our culture is a lot more centered on community. شوف عمك, أخوك, right?
Yeah.
This does not happen in the West. They might come for Christmas, if that.
Yeah.
For them. For us, you haven't seen your uncle in a week. What's going on?
Or I'm gonna see my mother next year. That's what they say back then. But here, obviously, it's a very much part of the daily routine or weekly routine that you see your family, your sisters, friends. So we are a bit different. I think we are much better here in this region.
Absolutely. I think there's that saying, right? It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And I think there's real truth to that. And I think that's why you see so many social issues happening in Europe and America and all kinds of craziness, and that's because they lack a community.
Yeah, absolutely.
But hopefully we'll see that return. Well, hopefully they'll find their community, and I hope that the Middle East can maintain our community.
Inshallah, we hope so.
Inshallah, absolutely. And do you think that the implication of not AR, it's AR, yeah.
VR?
No, AR.
Oh, AI.
No, there's VR, virtual reality, and AR, which is augmented reality.
Oh, augmented. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I can see it in cars a lot. I think the motor industry seems to be implementing that. I think it's fantastic for cars. When you see, the screen in your car.
The speed dial.
Well, it's more than that, right? There's a camera that shows you, the navigation, but in real life. So you see the arrows on your windshield or on your screen.
Yes.
That's augmented reality. And the thing is, I see this specifically in sort of bad weathers, right? When you have, for example, fog or dust, right? When you don't, sometimes you don't see in front of you. So this is really fascinating because you can see basically right in front of you. So that's fantastic. I think it's very similar to what I said earlier. I mean, if it blends into your life without any pressure on the learning curve, if it's just part of the car system, the navigation system, that's where augmented reality can be there. Rather than me purchasing an augmented reality goggles and I kind of walk with it. No, I think it's important for all these technologies to blend into our lives in a very seamless way.
And would you support bio-ware as well?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So,
why not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm hesitant, and the
Really?
whole idea of putting a computer
Is it because
chip.
of personal data being shared?
Oh no! For me, BioWare, in the sense of like what Elon Musk is right now doing, trying to install computer chips that you could somehow communicate.
Oh, to that
degree.
I think that's quite extreme.
Exactly,
I think
right?
that's extreme. When somebody gets born, then you just basically insert a chip in that baby, and then hopefully it will grow with him.
And at the born, I feel it's less bad than when you're in your 30s or 40s.
Yeah. Probably for us today in this region, probably for the next 20 years, probably it doesn't make sense.
We don't have to worry about it.
50 years from now, it probably will make sense because those days will be completely different, obviously, from our days today. But today, next 10 years, it's just too much. I think it's going the extreme ways. I think.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk right now has announced that they're doing the first human applicants on larger scales. I think they have about 100 people that they're experimenting on every year, which is absolutely terrifying to me.
Yes.
Well, for me, the terrifying apartment is the operation rather than anything else.
Yeah.
Well,
I think, look, Hamad, I think not everything will work. I mean, remember Google
glasses?
Glasses? It didn't work. I mean, even today, I don't see people wearing smart glasses.
But do you think it didn't work because it lacked the necessary finances behind it? Do you think they gave it up too quickly?
Or maybe, as I said earlier, the seamless integration into people's life, it wasn't there. Maybe if they designed it in a way that looks like, you know, your glasses they're wearing, maybe you would have accepted it.
By the way, Dan, can you look it up? Does Google Glass still is in use? I think some companies are still using it for engineering purposes.
Maybe it's transformed into maybe a slight different design, but the actual one with the, you know, the aluminium
the frame, because I
frame
it's
no longer.
I remember that
This one here. This one.
yeah.
That one I don't think
Is it still available as results no longer commercially available in retail products? Google Glass still does exist though.
Oh.
I knew that some applicants for engineers,
maybe medicine, engineering.
I know that it I forgot which airline company. One of the airline companies were using it
For training. Their you know, aircrew.
Engineers,
Yeah.
which to me that makes the most sense.
True. But I mean, for normal consumers, you know, it's gonna probably take a while for them to redesign and you know, blend it into people's lives. Yeah.
I think it's sooner than we think.
Oh yes. As I mean, there's so many things that people have come up in terms of technology, but they didn't really materialize into real life. So whatever Elon Musk is doing, maybe he's very smart. Obviously, he sees something that we don't see, but it will take some time for these ideas to flourish.
Do you think it's smart, or do you think he's just a marketing genius?
Well, I think he is. Well, look, I mean, he is smart. I don't think he's just smart.
Are you worried that you're going to end up in the same room with him?
Yeah, I think. Look, I think he is. Obviously, he has a lot of resources, and he can do things, right? He can do things. Maybe not many people don't have that opportunity, and they could be as equally smart to him. But he has the resources to do it, and that's why he's going, you know, to the space, and he's doing all these
buying Twitter,
very very unique and very disruptive kind of nature of these ideas. But you know, whether he's the smartest person in the world, I don't think so. I mean, there are definitely some smart people in the world.
Well, you know what I think it is? I think him and Trump have the same ability of social engineering. I think both of them are somehow able to say, you know, extreme stuff or whatever else, to not get enough repercussion that it hurts them financially, but grow more media attention on them. You know, and both of them, by the way, which is fascinating to me, now own their own social network. Trump obviously has Truth Media or Truth Social, and Elon is now bought Twitter.
Yes, exactly. So he's in the process of buying Twitter. But I think, I mean, he has done some good work. I think, you know, Tesla. I mean, I remember one of my friends when I was at Investcorp. He was talking to me about Tesla, and this is.
Was he shorting it?
He was actually shorting it.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, you're talking about 1998.
Yeah.
And I was laughing at him. Oh, what is this? He said, "Oh, Jameel, you have to, you know,
start shorting it."
Yeah, shorting this company is coming up. It's gonna do electric cars. I said, "Come on, what is this electric car? It won't be successful," you know. And things have changed completely. So he has some, you know, very risky ideas. He takes huge risks, and
but the Wall Street is willing to fund it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, what was always crazy to me, and I think this is with Jeff Bezos in this case, he was the only person who got so much free capital from Wall Street. Well, he also worked in Wall Street for a long part of his life, but there was no other company that got so much access to cheap capital at such a cheap rate.
Yes.
You know, they were only 5 years into it, and they were bigger than Walmart.
Right.
From an evaluation.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Jeff Bezos is quite as smart as maybe Elon Musk. Definitely. I mean, he has.
Just to bring it into Bahrain and everything else. And I think that's what's the key thing missing in not just Bahrain, but in the Gulf region, is a necessary backing of financial institutions on, you know, entrepreneurs or people who are willing to do an enterprise on crazy ideas.
Yep.
Oh, Mike needs to be a little closer, sir.
Yeah.
About there. Yeah, good? Okay.
Yeah. So I think, look, I think there are some organizations, Hamid. I think we're not really short of venture capitalists in Bahrain. I know a few companies here who would basically support startups, but I think the scale is not that big. I think most of the venture capitalists in this region, they want companies that are in growth modes. They don't want to take any risks. They're looking for companies, that have already started and they just need some funding to develop a product or to grow a market so they can return their investment pretty quickly. But for companies to really invest on startups, taking a huge risk, I think they're very limited. And the banking sector here is not really
Set up for it.
It's not set up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, and then even the governments, obviously we have Bahrain Development Bank,
Sure.
at least, and they are funding companies. But again, it's the same story, Hamad. They're looking for companies which are really in a growth mode.
But I think that's the thing that's going to pull talent back into our region, and going to stop the brain drain is by funding these exuberant projects and trying to get them working. I mean, there's a fantastic book I'll share with you, sir, if you like. It talks about that the mother of innovation in the U.S. is almost completely centered around the DoD and NORAD. That, you know, lithium batteries were developed by the DoD.
Yep.
Touchscreen technology was developed by the DoD. GPS, obviously. 3G antennas. AR and VR also by DoD, and it's then they sell these patents and these contracts then to technology companies who then claim, like Apple, saying, you know, we invented liquid retina displays, where, you know, not true.
Yes, even the internet, right? Internet was first used by DoD. So I think,
Sure.
You know, I think you're right. It's just, again, I wish there are more companies, you know, angel investors in this region to really help and support. I think from what I've seen, you know, in Bahrain here, there are people who are willing to really become entrepreneurs. I think it's by nature in this country. I mean, this country, specifically Bahrain, has always been fascinated and passionate about trade and commerce from years ago, right? Again, my father used to tell me this because he was a trader. He was a textile trader, so he was trading a lot. I mean, with a lot of countries around India, Iraq, you know, Iran at the time.
Sure.
Most of the region here. So he was basically a trader, and Bahrain was flourishing in trade and commerce.
Can you look up what the population is of Israel? Because Israel has become almost a tech hub.
Oh yes,
right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
There's no reason, in my opinion, why Bahrain cannot
replicate that.
Replicate that exact
There's
system.
no question on that.
Right? And they have 10 times the population than, well, not 10 times, almost 10 times the population of Bahrain.
Yeah.
But I still don't see why we cannot, like, really zone in and really focus on that, right?
So really, I think, you know, to summarize, I think, look, this country has a lot of potential. You have great brains, a lot of highly educated people. The youngsters are extremely,
malleable. Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's no question on that. So I think some of these people will have, you know, the passion to become entrepreneurs and to develop new businesses.
Absolutely. I think it's a great start that that all the Middle East has started renationalization of a lot of industries, which is great. You know, airports, finally, more and more Bahraini citizens are being hired as local staff. You know, this wasn't the case for almost 10 years.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes.
And it's great that we're now putting emphasis on it.
Yeah. The thing is, where I see the problem, Hamad, is if, you know, people, you know, graduating from universities coming back to Bahrain and they don't find opportunities, and they will actually, what do you call it, the brain drain. Brain drain. So basically, they're gonna basically go in various places where they will find opportunities, and this is where I see the problem. I mean, because if there are no people investing in entrepreneurs or in you know, taking some risky business, then these people will go to places where they will be basically welcomed, and you know, their brains and ideas can be developed and nourished. So this is where I see the biggest issue, because we have so many talented people, actually.
America was so far ahead. My dad tells me stories of it back in the 70s. He said if you finished with a master's degree in America, you were issued immediately a green card.
There we go.
You were issued immediately a green card, and he was telling me in 2 years' time you would have been a U.S. citizen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how they maintained that kind of ability to have that cognitive enterprise.
Oh yes. I think I said that we have a lot of people being educated in various international great universities in the US and in the UK, but I really wish that these people, when they come back, they are taken care of.
Absolutely.
Because if they don't, then they will go to places where they will be taken care of. And I can't, you know, I mean, with the Brexit, for example, right, in the UK, and the UK currently is, you know, they're sucking people. They're, you know, taking brains. You know, especially people young who are talented, and also people who really have very unique specialization in nursing and in medicine and engineering, computer science. They will just take them in, and this is where I see the problem. I mean, especially Bahrain, we have so many talented people. I mean, the University of Bahrain by itself, I think they graduate a lot of people, and Bahrain University is one of the best in the region, I think. Even today, it's one of the best.
No, I can back you up on that. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's one of the best in any field. Engineering, computer science.
People come to that university to study. That isn't the case if you're not a good university.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, I wish these people would actually be absorbed in the industries, various industries, nourished and also taken care of, and obviously pushed to even do higher education and come back to Bahrain and do even more work here. So that's what I hope.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And what would you see yourself the next 10 years?
Okay. Tough questions.
Or 5 years.
I'm not person. I'm going to retire soon. I mean, I'm 56 at the moment.
Come on.
I'm 56.
First of all, you don't look 56.
Oh,
so come on.
I'm getting, look, my gray hair tells it all.
Come on.
But I'm actually 56 now. So, look, I don't see myself retiring. I think, if I ever retire, I think I have equipped myself with a lot of hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of hobbies.
Photographer, you mentioned.
Yes. Photography is one of them, but I'm more into arts and calligraphy and all these fascinating hobbies. Again, this was built during my school days, and I can see, probably me igniting these again.
But don't you see, especially at where your stage of life is, how few people actually have genuine hobbies? I find it amazing.
Well, you see, the problem is if you don't have any hobbies, and I see a lot of people don't have any hobbies, and they get stuck. I mean, when they get older, they get stuck. What to do now? I mean, if they are not into other businesses, if they don't want to start a business, what to do? They have a whole day to spend, right? They can't just stay at home. So some people again go to gardening. Some people basically just again go, sort of traveling. But I think it's important for the younger generation to really build some sort of hobbies.
Let me add to that, if you don't mind. I've spoken to a lot of people in their early 18, 16, 17 age gap, and they say the same thing a lot of the time. I wish my parents didn't allow me to stop. Mm-hmm. Didn't allow me to stop going karate, didn't let me stop ballet, didn't let me stop whatever it was. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because that passion, that item makes you unique then in your friend circle, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And so the world has become so, what's the right word, homogenous. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's harder and harder to stand out. And unless you have like a hobby, like with you, photography, I mean, I share that hobby as well. I love street photography. Especially in the UK and the US, I'll have a huge lens, like a 200 to 600 millimeter.
All right.
And I'll just go walking around town and I'll just look for something that's interesting.
Yes.
And I just take a picture of it. I love it.
Yes, photography is fascinating. I mean, although, you can still use your iPhone today.
Absolutely.
But I'm traveling actually next week. I am taking one of my Fujifilm cameras, although I have, an iPhone. But it's something about taking your camera and turning it on and changing the lens and, playing with the film simulations and
the tactile feel and the feel.
There's something about that, right? Maybe some of the people who have never experienced this don't understand, but obviously there is some fascinating about that. So hopefully, I'm gonna put my skills.
And how did you get into calligraphy then?
Oh, again, it's just a natural gift, I think. I was a much younger age, I think.
No family connections that were interested?
Really,
no uncles, father, mother? Nobody was...
I just realized I was maybe in my, second year, Safa Thani, and second year or third year, I realized, there's something, I can do calligraphy and Arabic, and obviously arts. I wasn't so much into, paintings. I was much more into calligraphy. But for some reason I realized, and then I developed it into various, woodwork, again, using calligraphy. I still have some of that work.
Oh, wonderful.
And I kind of gifted and I've donated a lot of it to other, clubs and different
Well, if you have some pictures of it, send it over and we'll include it.
No worries, I'll try and dig something there.
Absolutely, that's wonderful.
Yep. So really, if you ask me the 10 years, I think I would love to be part of some sort of an education, and I'd love to share my story with others. I think I can inspire so many people. I think I have some interest into that. I think some of the younger generation, at least in my case, I didn't have the opportunity to be guided, okay, in terms of what I should do. My father, actually, my late father, Allah yarhamah yani, he was a trader, but he wasn't into education or so. So, today I want to fill in that gap, and as much as I can, I would actually try and inspire people and guide them into what they need to do in the future. There's a lot of people who, especially graduating from school, they don't have this chance, right? They don't know what to do.
There's no understudies anymore.
Understanding. And I always, when I speak to people coming from universities, I say, guys, what are you doing at the final year? You should really try and have classes, lessons, advising students of what to do next, right? We don't want everybody to go into computer science or everybody going into medicine, right? So I think there is an area where I can help the younger generation. And I've done a number of master MBA classes on strategy and management and those areas. But I think I'm more into, hopefully, helping the younger generation make a decision on what to do in the future.
And how do you see that as a capacity? Do you see maybe as like a website where you would structure it as almost like a university degree and people could sign up, or however that would work? Or do you see that maybe like more of a one-to-one thing?
Well, I think it's a combination. I would love to do mentoring.
Sure.
Mentoring is very close to my heart. I've mentored so many people in the past, but I think mentoring face-to-face rather than really digitally. I think there's so many resources digitally available today. And if you go on Google and just Google advice, but I still think there is that personal,
tactile
kind of advice. I think people would listen to you. They would look at you. They would see how you talk, how you behave, and they try and be maybe inspired by you. You can't do this on a website. I think this is the problem.
I think what would be really great if you could somehow tie that in. I'm assuming that you're mostly going to be aiming at either entrepreneurs or middle management or that kind of capacity. My assumption is.
Right.
If you could tie it in maybe with some sort of like sponsorship program or something like that, I think you can do a double whammy, right? You can help industries getting started and at the same time be part of that industry and be like, hey, you know what? My years of experience has shown me that probably the best way to doing it is this way.
Yep, probably. And I think I probably have the ability to talk slightly lower than, what sort of my knowledge is. So I can maybe bring down, in terms of communication skills, I can talk to, students and maybe even people in the lower grades in school, or I can talk to board members and CEOs and chairmen. So I get that level of, communication skills. I can basically target the person based on their understanding and
their knowledge base.
Yeah, just establish a rapport and then be able to communicate. That's where I think my strength is, and I be able to.
You're definitely blessed. You're definitely blessed. I mean,
hopefully, I can maybe share these ideas with some of the younger generation, people who are really growing their careers.
I think so. I think there's definitely a market for it. I mean, I don't know if how financially viable that market would be, considering that Bahrain is 1.6 million people. Yeah. But as from a humanitarian perspective, as just for your own legacy. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's going to be more of that, to be honest, rather than a commercial
product.
I don't see it as a commercial. It's not. There's no interest in me being selling or trying to market. Though I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of kind of a philanthropy kind of area or some sort of a genuine advice. That's all.
But let me be honest with you though. Do you not hate all this social media consultancy? Marketing nonsense where they say buy my program, blah blah blah.
Yeah, no, I think that's purely commercial, and I don't think those are effective.
I don't think it's not just commercial. I think I think I'll take it a step further. I think it's unethical, and I think it's robbery.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's misleading to some extent. So I don't really support those kind of propaganda. I would say it's just purely marketing, and I don't see it as effective.
I mean, there are videos. If you know who Gary Vee is, who's very popular.
Yeah.
It my heart almost bleeds when I watch this poor woman coming on saying, you know what, I went to this course, I paid $2,000, $4,000. I couldn't take my kids because I couldn't afford buying them a ticket, but I will take this knowledge and give it to them. Where I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
That really hurts when you see that kind of stuff.
You're right. I think no. I don't think that's right. I think what I'm talking about here is being able to somehow in certain forums, maybe through universities or schools, or maybe onboarding summer interns or some sort of a forum where I can maybe at least help generations to be inspired and to be very positive and optimistic as well. And then,
But how do you teach that though? How do you teach being positive?
well, I mean, kind of by example, lead by example. So, so people, I think, will need to see how positive you are. People need to listen to stories to say, look, I mean, you don't have to be so negative because of you heard a negative comments from someone on WhatsApp. I think that's really wrong, and I think this is what I'm trying to fight. The ability not to influence the younger generation by being too negative, especially by people who have really left the corporate world and their career life is over, but they're trying to propagate negativity into the younger generation.
Do you think there's an addiction with the devices and the communication?
Oh, absolutely.
So you think there is there is that matrix to it?
Yes, no question, Hamad.
Because I know there is real truth to what you're saying. There is a lot of people who left the industry who become a little maybe embittered. They didn't reach the position they wanted. Maybe they left on a sour note. And they have that frustration, and then they just pass it along down.
Absolutely.
Right?
And they found a fantastic channel, and that's social communication, social networks. Whether that's WhatsApp or
LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever.
Or Instagram. And they're spreading these negativities. And this is what I hated. And especially on groups, various groups, whether they're, in WhatsApp, and I can see it, Hamad. It's always there. Very negative. And this is what I'm trying to fight. And I think if I can, at least, show some, affection and some help to, tell the younger generation, don't listen to that. I mean, there's still a whole life outside of this community in Bahrain. There's a whole life, right? It's a fantastic place to be. But just don't be confined to what people are talking about in this country.
Do you think it's fear that stops people from actively pursuing a greater picture? I know a lot of people are scared to travel. I don't know why, but they're scared to experience things.
You're right. I think that could be a problem. If you can't see places outside of Bahrain, then that could be a problem. Because you'll be restricted to what people are telling you in this community. And it's a very small community, relatively, right? And you will miss a lot of things happening around you in the world.
But I think what frightens me is that they get negative influences from the social media channels, maybe from whatever their family relationships are, for whatever reason. And then they look at whatever is on Netflix or YouTube, and then they see this kind of this world, which they don't realize that's not a real place. That's a set. That's a script. A team of people made that. That's not real, or they put on Nature Channel and they see elephants and lions. They go, well, I don't need to go look at nature anymore. I see it.
Yeah, there could be some truth to that, to be honest. I mean, you're right. I mean, there definitely some, influence by Netflix, but I still think, it goes back to the circles around them. Sure. The circles, the friends, their fathers, their mothers, their friends of fathers.
Sure.
So that kind of network, they're very close to them, and this is where I see the biggest danger.
And how do you
hope in this country and in the world?
And how do you believe we can tackle that?
Well, I think it's important.
Sorry to put you on the spot, by the way.
No. I think it's important that the people who are basically spreading these ideas
to limit that.
I think they are mature enough to understand they're not doing good for their children and their children's friends and their communities around them. If something happened to you in your career, negative thing, well, you don't think, of course I have experienced negative things and failures. Do I spread it? No way. I will never mention it. I will probably mention, you need to fail so that you can get up and then work harder. I'm not going to mention that to someone who is just graduating from university or from school. I will always share success stories and, show that there is life.
But don't you think that we need to somehow learn to appreciate failure as something beautiful?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because when you fail, that means you took on something bigger.
Of course.
That you had a chance of failing, which is that in itself should be praised.
Exactly. And this is what I said earlier, right? If you fail, then you have to learn, right, from your failures. That's a lesson. And then you have to do even better. next time, right? This is what I mean by failure.
So I know a really interesting guy. His name is David Asprey, and this is the way he teaches his kids. By the way, he gives them he says to them, you know, make an action plan. Let's see what your to-do lists are. Blah 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 blah. And whenever they fail to meet whatever whenever they succeed meeting everything, he goes to them and say, oh, that's really sad. You know, you've succeeded everything. That means you know you didn't think big enough.
Exactly.
And so his kids have started practicing, trying to do more than what they can. Yes. And when they fail at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, he goes there and says, oh, that's really great. You know, you dared to reach for something that's beyond your grasp.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is what I think. I think it's also for the younger generation to realize, you know, this is not what it is in the whole world. There's life. There is so many opportunities. I mean, would love as much as possible to bring back brains to Bahrain and make sure they, you know, develop the economy and build the economy. But I think there's always life. There's always opportunities elsewhere. But you know, but again, we are still again talking from a Bahraini kind of standpoint.
Absolutely.
We like our country. We'd love to be back. I think most of the people that I know who went outside, they came back at some point in time. This is home, right? At some point. But what I'm saying is for the younger generation, do not be put off by some of the sort of negative, you know, electricity that you see around you through social media and stuff like that.
Do you believe that that's the only real way of growth, is to go through a similar process of trial by fire like you have? Because you had to go all over the Gulf region in order to then become who you are today in Bahrain.
Absolutely. There's no question on that, Hamad. I think, look, I worked with multiple cultures, right?
Of course.
I can't remember how many nationalities of people that I spoke with, that I worked with, colleagues, friends. That helped really form your personality, and you're able to communicate to different cultures, right? So if you just stick to one culture, and that's not good, because you haven't seen you know, a lot more.
Okay.
You know, as I said earlier, I mean, the more you talk to different people in different fields, you realize how much you don't know.
So, okay, I will take the burden of saying it then, since you're setting me up for it. I'll say it. Okay, if you want to be great, you want to be successful in Bahrain, you have to go and explore the rest of the world to then come back and bring your success.
Oh,
I will put that out there.
You got it. I think that's pretty much sums it up.
But I'm so happy to hear that. I find so many entrepreneurs, by the way. What is fascinating, if you don't mind me saying, from all the entrepreneurs, all the business owners, I've met, they all have the same notion of what is success. They all say the same thing: community, building a community. Profit isn't anywhere, you know, it's not even on the top 5 of their priorities. They said, you know, if I can keep the lights running, if I can pay the rent, I'm happy.
Right.
And as long as the people who are working there, people who are coming to do it, they're happy. And I was blown away by that. But as you know, in the US and UK, profit maximization.
Right. I think when it comes to entrepreneurs, I think, yes, I think most of them share the same value, and that's basically having a community, being part of a community. You know, profit is I don't think it's on their top of priorities, you know, when they start. But at some point,
it has to move up.
It will have to. They will have to move up to that level. I think.
Absolutely.
But not probably in the start. I think you still have to think in commercial ways. Obviously, and you know, you're building a startup. You're building an entity. So if it's not gonna make the numbers, then you know, it's not going to be viable, right? It's going to be just a waste of time.
So with your managerial style, how do you convince your management team to look at decisions not at 5-year gap? Because that's always, you know, the problems with business. CEOs and boards try to look at 25 years of applications and strategies, while, you know, management always tries to somehow do it in 5 years. You know?
So today, when I talk to people at that level, it's 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
I said, look, I mean, the forecast and the outlook I can give you is up to 2 years. Especially, again, if you're in the technology world, on the field of technology, there's no way you can predict what's going to happen in 2 years. Actually, 2 years, that's too long in my world. But again, from a forecasting and business outlook, so I can go to maximum 2 years. Beyond that, it's just going to be complete nonsense. You cannot predict what's going to happen in 2 years. The world is changing so much, Hamad. You cannot, no way anybody can say, oh, and I know the market will be at this level in 2 years from now. Or the technology will stop at a certain level. No, I think there's so much gonna happen in a 2-year time frame.
Dan, can you look up that commercial from AT&T? They did one about what technology would look like in the 2000s,
Right.
in the 1970s. And they got a lot of things right, but they got it wrong in scale.
Right. Yes.
They never thought that, you know, a phone could be as small as your hand. And it's a fantastic little ad.
Yes.
You can turn off the volume, yeah. Just make sure it's off the volume. I don't know which ad it is, but it's one of them. So we can have it on the back while we're talking.
No, I think yeah. You see, the world has changed. I think today when I put in a business plan, and I'm doing it all the time, obviously. No, I think I put in 2 years maximum in terms of what I can think of happening, or as a forecast for the business. That's how I can predict it. But beyond that,
I'm sure you strategize longer than 2 years for decision and what kind of complexes you want to build or anything else like that.
Yes, but then in terms of numbers, in terms of forecast,
financial forecasting, of course, that's natural. That's
because
natural.
Things could really go either way. You could really make it and really build a very huge pipeline of opportunities, or you don't make it. If, for example, there isn't enough interest in a particular technology because it has become obsolete, for example, in a year, then people won't really invest in that technology, whether it's a security technology, whether it's which is robotics technology, could be anything. You say, I wanna invest, I wanna focus on RPA, which is robotics technology, and then in a year from now, they're not interested because something else has replaced that technology.
No, absolutely. We see it with TVs right now, with QLED monitors, OLED, macro LED. We see that right now with Intel, where they're having trouble right now with the processors because more and more is switching to RAM processors. You know what the Apple is right now using with their silicon?
Correct. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So basically, it's in memory, right? It's in memory processing. They're basically having the memory within the RAM, so you don't have to store data on your disk.
Sure.
So the computer will run much faster.
Absolutely. And they're talking about 3D architecture as well on CPUs. So instead of being a CPU going lengthwise out, that it can actually scale upwards.
Right.
Which is a fascinating concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, so it's changing, you see, and things are happening pretty fast, Hamad. This is very difficult to basically predict what's going to happen in 2 years, in technology specifically. So yeah, that's how I plan.
No, I think it's wonderful. Do you think that Bahrain should focus on having web servers here in Bahrain?
Well, the problem with that is electricity, cost of electricity. I mean,
for cooling, you mean?
For cooling, for running, a lot of people misunderstand or underestimate the cost.
Sure.
If you know about cryptocurrencies or crypto mining, some people in Bahrain have attempted to do that, but then they realize the cost of the bills,
cooling,
the electricity just outpaces what they're getting basically in return. So you have to be careful in terms of where you are, geographically.
Sure.
Maybe we're not really in a region where that makes sense.
I will make a counter argument to that, sir, if you don't mind me.
Go for it. Oh, absolutely.
Look at Elba. It's not the typical region where you would have an aluminium company.
Absolutely. That's why they have their own power station. Right?
Absolutely. But if you would have gone back in the 1970s, I think it was founded 1970s. I think the late 1970s was when it was first founded. Everyone thought Middle East aluminium factory.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Yes. You're right. Yeah. So people, I think, need to be a bit careful in terms of looking at all the parameters right around having web servers or mining, processes in Bahrain. Have to be careful. Watch out for all the parameters.
I think the future is underwater servers. I think Google has experimented with it.
Microsoft, actually.
Or Microsoft,
yeah.
Where they had I think it was almost like a submarine, but with
you're right. You're absolutely right. It's Microsoft.
Yeah.
And it's very well. It's worked very well.
I think the only issue was the seawater because for the liquid cooling to occur, they need to somehow process the salt into regular drinking water.
Right, and also corrosion.
On the outside of the frame isn't so much. You can make that out of stainless steel or whatever to not get any ionization.
Yeah.
But to somehow take in the water into cooling the chips.
Right. Yes, and obviously the concept worked. They had the challenges. I think they're still using it to some extent. So you see this, all these ideas, right? I mean, you never know what's going to happen in years
Absolutely.
from now.
No. Because I'm a big believer in it, because I think we have lots of natural resources. We have gas in abundance,
Yes.
right? And we've got water in abundance.
So it could be a prime location. I think.
Exactly. Just
Yeah.
dump it right in the bottom of the sea,
Yes.
get a gas line to power to
Absolutely.
electricity, and there you're done.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it could be. Why not? I said, yeah, definitely.
I don't know, because I think of always, you know, what can we do in the region that it brings us out of just a simple tertiary industry, right? Every industry, every economy needs a primary, secondary, and tertiary industry in this sense of services, whether it be banking, medical, insurances. We still need, you know, either farmers for primary growing stuff, or mines or gas. I mean, we also need secondary, right? Car building, airplanes, whatever.
Yeah, I think. Look, look at Saudi Arabia, for example, right?
Sure.
I mean, Saudi Arabia today, the economy in Saudi Arabia, in my view, is a lot more diversified and
Absolutely.
well-established compared, for example, to the UAE economy.
Absolutely, absolutely,
UAE economy is based on real estate,
absolutely,
on tourism,
absolutely.
and that's it.
But who has the two biggest funds in the world? Denmark and Saudi Arabia, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And it's a shame that both of them are not investing internally. Both of them are investing
Yes,
externally.
Exactly. So Saudi Arabia is a fantastic example of how, you know, you can turn around economies. I mean, they manufacture everything now, Ahmed. I mean, they're self-sufficient, right, in terms of food and maybe technology and services and energy. They're self-sufficient as a region, as a country.
My father's from Saudi. I'm Saudi as well. So I cannot stop praising MBS. I think what the achievements that he's managed to put through,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
from
no question on that.
absolutely. I mean, just alone that we have how long did it take to build a Formula One track? 1 year?
1 year, yes. The scale and the timeline they're using, I think it's unbelievable.
And Defense Force, by the way, because there were some attacks on Formula One's track that they managed to circumvent.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's unprecedented.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I have a friend of mine who just returned from Riyadh. Just yesterday, he was in Riyadh, and he just told me just this morning, Jameel. I said, "How was it?" I haven't been to Riyadh for a long time. He said, "Look, Jameel, I don't know when you last you were in Riyadh, but if you go back now, it's a completely different country. From the moment you land in the airport, to the moment you drive and you meet people, is a completely different country."
No,
and the timing that MBS has done it is unbelievable.
And the scale he's managed to accomplish it.
Yeah, but
right?
more than that, Hamad, I always say this, is the diversified nature of the economy. Manufacturing, energy, construction, IT, cryptocurrencies, you name it, and they have it there.
But let's also be honest, right? I think the reason the scale has been able to accomplish in the economy was because of competition.
Right.
Competition is the always driving factor, right?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia isn't anymore the 50% of the world producer of crude oil.
Yes.
We are now at 10%.
Yes.
We have competition with Russia. U.S. is now exporting, and so that put an initial drive on the economy to diversify.
Exactly, which is good, right?
I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you.
It kind of lessens the dependency on energy sector, right? To really promote and develop the economy, and that's the right way to do it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, with my full respect, obviously, to the UAE, I think they've done a great job. I think I was in Dubai a few weeks ago. It's still, every time I go there, I get amused, to be honest. There's always something different, right? But at the end of the day, the economy is still based on real estate, on people living there, but not really into diversify. There's no money manufacturing facilities or production of some to that scale where you can say, oh, it is really diversified.
Do you not potentially see that? I mean, there's always a big debate that I have with a lot of people in this sector and industry, and they always make a same case argument where the financial PowerPoint is going to be, whether it's going to be in Riyadh, whether it's going to be in Dubai. My case argument is Dubai is a more funner town to live in, so you're going to more easily get consultants.
Well, sorry to stop you there.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that's going to continue, though. I mean, from what
Fair
my
point.
friends say,
Fair point.
is that Riyadh is
Fair
a completely different country now.
Fair point.
So,
but could
not
you
sure for how long?
Could you convince a consultant or from JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs to be like, hey, live in Riyadh where it's just sand? Or do you want
to be honest, why not? Maybe that could be happening pretty soon. The scale, as I just mentioned,
sure.
I mean, the transition of the country that happened over the last year and a half, 2
sure.
years, right? just tells you how much is gonna change in the country over the next 6 months, a year.
Sure.
So we could probably sitting here next year and say, oh, you know what?
I
Oh,
was
I'm just
wrong.
going-
Or,
I'm just going
absolutely.
to Riyadh for the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There's so much attraction for me as a Bahraini, right?
Absolutely.
Coming from an open society here. Oh, I'm just gonna go to Riyadh for a weekend.
Visa-free travel, by the way, just
visa-free,
initial it.
Hop on the train, hopefully, and I can go to Riyadh in 4 hours. You never know. So I mean, people used to say this to Dubai. Oh, I'm just going to Dubai for. Okay, that makes sense. But going to Riyadh or Jeddah or even the Eastern Province, it's going to happen very soon.
Let's also admit, better late than never, with the whole visa-free travel
Yes.
thing. That should have been initialized like a long time ago.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
for business alone,
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
And-
I
and
agree with more.
It's good that it's finally done, alhamdulillah. And let's look at it from the
Yes.
positive always
Oh,
notion.
yes, absolutely. There's no question on that. But I think Saudi Arabia, I think, is it's a fantastic region. And I think even in my current role, I'm obviously about to enter Saudi Arabia with the company I'm running now for Yusuf bin Ahmed Khan. It's called K-Soft. So we are basically about to enter the Saudi market pretty soon, and we're really very excited to go into that country.
What I see struggling with a lot of middle-sized companies is how large, if they don't diversify quick enough into different regions, they get really cut and pushed. But telco is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? I forgot what the Saudi branch is. There's two big competitors they have.
Is it? You're talking about Saudi, but Telco.
But telco is Bahraini, obviously. But they're right now being punished in the market right now by two companies who have just entered. Not just entered. Zain, I think, is one of them.
Okay.
Which is Saudi. And what's the other one?
Etisalat, maybe, or Due?
HTC?
STC. Maybe STC.
SDC.
Okay.
Both are Saudi funded. Both of them have way more cash reserves, obviously.
Yes.
And so if you've ever gone around the highway, the amount of commercials that you see based on those two parts,
Yes.
you can see.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right. I think to diversify regionally is the key word here.
Yeah.
I think, again, business-wise, what I've seen companies in Bahrain specifically do is that if they have chosen a specific field of business and they don't do well because there's so much competition and very less opportunities, they panic, and what they do, they try and do everything.
Sure, yeah.
Right? So what should happen really? They should really say, okay, we've done it. We've tried this whatever field. We've done it in Bahrain, but we can't grow because there isn't really enough opportunity. Let's go and try our luck elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Let's go to Saudi, to Kuwait, to Qatar, to UAE. So
wherever.
But the same field, same type of field, right? So that's what I think the growth strategy should be for the next.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think so many, especially higher position people, they're so worried about being infamous.
Yes.
Right? Making the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Right? The reason why Kodiak owned the patent for the electronic SLR, but they failed to transist.
Correct.
Right? The same thing with Blockbusters.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, I mean, stories goes long Kodak and
Absolutely.
and, VHS.
Absolutely.
There's so many companies. There's many examples.
Sony almost went bankrupt until they had
Yes.
the American CEO who said, this silos cultures
Yes.
has to disappear.
Yes, Nokia, right? But the biggest example is Nokia. I mean, see where they were. So it is. I think these are all lessons. I think that companies need to watch out for. I think just to keep themselves open for ideas, especially the younger generation. I think you should always listen to what they say because those are going to be your customers in the future. And if you don't listen to them, then
you're in trouble.
It.
Absolutely. Well, what are you doing in Saudi? Are you going to try to introduce more cybersecurity wear?
Correct.
In the firms.
So we're basically into cybersecurity pretty much.
Yeah.
We're kind of more of a very niche and focused mindset. So we're going to basically replicate a successful business model that we've done in Bahrain here. We're going to replicate that in Saudi Arabia in the form of cybersecurity solutions, services, advisory services. We do a lot of security audits.
And do you have a target
companies.
scale that you would like to hit?
Well, again,
I mean, everyone would love to take Sabic, right? Everyone would love that, but
I mean, it's a big cake in Saudi
Sure.
Arabia. I think there's so many players. I still think there is a room for a GCC country being part of Bahrain, owned by a Bahraini family.
Sorry. I think we're miscommunicating for a second. What I meant is, do you have a size of companies that you're aiming to hit?
Oh, right.
Right.
Well,
What's your preferred customer base in that
it's going to
sense?
be the small and medium. segment of the market.
Sure.
Initially, we're not going to be targeting the larger. We can't, basically. But we're going to maybe spend some time with the small to medium companies. We're already doing it, to be honest, in Saudi Arabia to some extent. Very like low kind of focus, but we're going to target this segment.
And the business model would, I assume, would be subscription model.
Yes, I mean, we have some services but based on subscription. So, for example, you want to basically create an awareness program for your staff.
Sure.
And so we have that solution. So you say, okay, I want to basically be able to simulate cybersecurity attacks to my staff.
Sure.
It's part of the training.
Sure.
Right? So we have a subscription model for that.
Sure.
We have a subscription model, for example, for having a regular tests of your environment. If you want to have, for example, 2 or 3 times a year, what's called a vulnerability assessment. We basically try and do a stress testing on your
systems
to just make sure that, you forgot to close a door, right? You're doing some work on your network and your network engineer forgot to close a door. So we'll find that door and we'll tell you, Hamadi, I think you need to close the door because it's vulnerable.
And are you worried that the client will what's the right word, will tell the rest of the staff? Because there's a lot of like weird mentality in human beings because they want to perform good in the test, right? And they hired you to do a stress test.
Right.
Right. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well,
or do you feel like you have to instruct them and be like, hey, you know what? This is a stress test. So don't tell the rest of your company that this is going on.
Exactly. This is how it works. So we don't basically inform the staff. So this is the whole idea.
Exactly.
And then basically we provide a report to you saying, you have these issues on your environment and you need to sort them out before you're basically attacked.
So do you tell them the date of the attack or do you even keep that and say?
We keep like a window.
We keep a window.
We have like a weekend or during different times of the day. For example, we do test midnight, sometimes like
low trade.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
And we deploy teams international as well because of the time zones, because this kind of work requires timing as well. For example, if we're going to test a vulnerability of a computer room in a company, we want to check who is logging on to these servers, right? And at what time. If we see someone logging on at 3 a.m., right? And which is not usually the case.
From Bombay.
Right.
Yeah.
There must be something going on, right? So we basically alert, right? This goes into our report. Oh, by the way, there's this user is logging on. Can you just check that he's a valid user and there was a reason why this person has logged on at 3 a.m.? So this is the kind of work that we do.
Do you believe that the future of security will be card readers in a sense, like in the military style? DoD, everyone from...
I think it's going into bio. A lot
of bio,
yes, iris scanners and
sorry, I don't mean on location security. I mean like device to email to client.
Oh, right. So I think there's so much technology today. I think the 2-factor authentication is a big one. Is when basically they use multiple verifications to make sure that the identity of Hamad is Hamad. Actually,
you get a text message saying, "Hey, did you log in?" or whatever.
You can have even 3-factor authentication. You can have a message, an SMS, a phone call, and maybe a password.
Sure.
So 3-way if you really want to be secure, just to make sure that it is you, Hamad, who's logging on to your bank account.
Because I spoke to some security experts with the DoD at the time, and they were mentioning to me that for their sites, the device that you take in your phone has to be wiped both on entry and exit.
Wow.
Of the facility.
Wow.
Which I was just amazed by.
So don't take your device.
Exactly.
Keep it at home.
Exactly. He was explaining to me that even their to access any computer system like off base, because they have like different hierarchy of clearances based on what information can be accessed outside of the designated security room, it is all done with a card reader. So you actually have a card reader USB that attaches. You plug it in. You have to type in a password. It connects to that server and then gives you a region of access that you get to have.
Right. Look,
that's not for companies, by the way. That's way too.
That's going really extensive. Here.
Exactly.
But there are different methodologies for verification of what's called identity management. It's called identity management. This is the field of security, identity management, but it's done in different ways.
Sure.
There's so many different ways to verify someone's identity.
Do you believe that the courts have an important role to play on how companies will? My thinking on this is, let me explain it in a better way, is sooner or later the courts, internationally, domestically, whatever, will punish companies harder for not securing that data better?
Oh, I don't know if you heard of the Bahrain Personal Data
Protection
Law.
Agency or Act, I think.
A law, actually. It's called. It's PDPL, which is
Yeah.
Bahrain PDPL Personal Data Protection Law, which has been enforced in August 2018. Announced, but hasn't formally kind of enforced. I think the government is deployed to one of the big fours to really just like how they've done the VAT, doing something similar. And it's managed by the Bahrain courts here. So that law is very important, and I think a lot of people don't understand the fines and the punishments involved. It's really hard. It's tough, up to imprisonments, right? But it basically says, right, when you go to a particular department store here and you want to buy something, and you go to the cashier, and the first thing they ask you is, can I have your mobile number?
Email address.
No, you cannot have my mobile number. What do you need my mobile number for? Right? Today, that law is not here in Bahrain. So what I'm doing here today, if somebody asks me, I just give them all kind of numbers.
Sure.
And give them different names. Every time is different, different number, different names. I don't know who these people are. So, you know, and that's going to protect the person. I think that's
I do the same thing, by the way. I always give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I just say John Doe.
I give them weird names and weird numbers, so I never give my number, you know. So that law will make sure that, you know, these people don't ask for any personal data that they don't need to keep in their systems.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's coming to our region. As you know, GDPR in Europe has already been rolled out, but PDPL is coming to Bahrain here. Within very I think
that will give a huge boom to the industry, especially in security.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
As soon as there's a stick involved, then people.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you can't imagine, especially when you look at the healthcare sector, for example, the amount of information they hold, and they don't care. I mean, you know, if someone accesses a patient's record, so what? Because there's no regulations, right? There's no law to say, oh, if your systems are hacked and a patient's information, historical information are spread, then you will be punished. There's no law yet.
Even the worst would be if it gets hacked and patients' information is suddenly missing.
Absolutely. I mean, you could share this with insurance companies, right?
Absolutely.
And they say, oh, he's like, 500 potential clients to us. So you can sell this information. So, there's no, the laws, I mean, it's been announced, but it hasn't been enforced, harshly yet.
It will come. It will come. It'll just a question of when, I think.
The pandemic has delayed it a little bit.
Yes.
Because it was launched announced in 2018, but 19 was supposed to be enforced, but it got delayed, and then pandemic hit. Everything got
slowed down.
Still, yeah.
No, I honestly believe as time will progress, I think not just these laws, I think there's going to be more and more stringent laws evolving around Data Protection Act, right? Mm-hmm. Privacy rights, all these notions. And they're going to escale the financial punishments.
Absolutely, and it's gonna create a boom in the cybersecurity world and data protection and privacy solutions, because companies will now become more responsible for the information they store about a citizen of Bahrain.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
This is where. So to do that, you need to have systems and processes and procedures in place to ensure the data is held privately. And securely.
I agree. I think one day companies will wake up and say, well, we cannot afford.
Well, you shouldn't be in business.
No, in the sense like we cannot afford to be punished this way.
Oh, I see. Yes,
right?
yes.
I think that one day the company, like with a car, right?
Yes.
You cannot afford to drive without an insurance.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It's gonna hit that actually pretty soon in Bahrain here, I think. Yeah, which is really important.
I think so too. These are just the prices of what we're going to see with innovation. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more companies, more entrepreneurs, more businesses opening across the region, right? I think to spread. And I think what's really great about Bahrainis and for Bahrain is if you can go, learn, meet people, explore, and bring those resources back.
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. There's nothing wrong in spending a few years in the US or in Europe or in Germany or in Japan, and at some point in time, come back to Bahrain and bring all this expertise and knowledge to flourish this country. I think it's a fertile company. It's beautiful, socially, economically, you name it, fantastic country to live in. It's just we need some of these brains to come back and then build on the successes of the past, right? I've seen a time in Bahrain, even in my, my life, in the 70s, this country economically has been flourishing. I mean, even if you go to Bab al-Bahrain, it's normal Bab
Absolutely.
al-Bahrain here. I've seen that. It's not so long ago. I'm talking about probably late 70s. You can't walk. I couldn't walk because of the people, how crowded the market was. And shops and commercial life was really booming in Bahrain. This is before even Dubai or even Saudi Arabia, or all these countries were not really in the picture at all. Talking just Bahrain, because people were coming to Bahrain to do business. So the ground's still there, as if you have a kind of a garden, and it just needs to be flourished and put fertilizer in it just to flourish it again.
I mean, I remember a day. I still remember a time when the hotel. What's the name of it? The one here down the road from here.
Oh,
not Four Seasons. Four Seasons didn't exist that long.
Oh, the
Ritz-Carlton. But before it was called
Meridian.
Yeah,
Le Meridian. Yes.
And they've only existed, that hotel, for less than 28 years.
Yes.
Right?
Imagine. Yeah, it still looks good.
It still looks good, but it's also become a staple of Bahrain, right?
Oh, yes.
When you look at images of Bahrain, that is one of the key icons.
It's there, yes.
And to imagine that just less than 28 years ago,
yes, absolutely,
there was nothing.
I think it's great. I really wish all the younger generations graduating this year,
Sure.
they go into university and learn and spend years. That doesn't matter, 3, 4, 5 years, doesn't matter. But come back to Bahrain, please.
I agree.
And then build this economy. It's a beautiful place to be in.
I agree, sir. Even if we go to the hotel, Gulf Hotel. Gulf Hotel. There's the pictures with how it looked like in the 1960s.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It was right on the sea. Right. It's a beach hotel.
Yeah.
Used to be a beach hotel.
Yeah. To think about that, isn't that amazing?
Yes. Definitely. I haven't seen those days. I think my time was after.
I'm not insinuating anywhere near.
If you're
I wasn't there either.
I'm not that old.
No, but it's beautiful pictures to see.
Yes, but it's great. I've seen the exhibition road. I've seen that complete dust with some maybe tents that were used for exhibitions. I've seen that. I can remember those. Again, those are 70s. This is what I can remember. Early 80s. But then things have changed, it's developed. There's no question on that. But we just want to really build on the success of the past.
Do you believe that our culture is going to go through the same as what India has gone through?
In what way?
It before Modi, it was incredibly westernized, and now after Modi, the Prime Minister, it's become incredibly nationalized. And it's been a return of clothing, return of music. It's almost a renaissance of their culture.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if that's going to happen in Bahrain. I think Bahrain is becoming now multicultural. I think, which is nothing wrong with that. I think it's important to have multicultures in Bahrain. It's always been like this in smaller scales, right? Even in the past, we had people from different cultures living in Bahrain. It's not really something new.
It was part of Rome at one point.
Of course, yes.
Right? We go back 2,000 years ago.
Yes. My father had friends from from India, from Iran, from Iraq, from even we had Jews in Bahrain, right? Nunu and BFC. All these names were friends of my family. They were all in the souk in Bab al-Bahrain, and they're all very close community. They were trading and they know each other very well. So culturally, Bahrain has always been welcoming a culture. It's a country that welcomes cultures compared to the other regions.
Voltaire makes an interesting. If you have a chance, read Voltaire. Maybe you have already. He's a writer from the Renaissance period, and he makes a point that the Christian, the Jew, and the Muslim can sit together and merchandise. And on the financial institution, it's the only time where everything can work. And I think that the more we have business and trades, the better it is for everyone around.
Yes, absolutely. And again, by having our children travel outside of Bahrain to mix with foreign cultures and come back to Bahrain, hopefully with a global mind, that's how I see Bahrain turning in the future, right? Being a global country. Again, when I did my master MBA, there was a lot of reference in some of the subjects to Singapore. So we were comparing Bahrain to Singapore a lot.
That was that was a different era back then.
It's a different era, and I think Bahrain has its own flavor, its own personality, right, which Singaporeans don't have. right? So we can still build on on the success of Singapore, but I think we can be different, right? So we have that culture, we have that history, and we can easily build on that.
Do you remember that during the bread exit, I think some politicians came out and said we will be like Singapore in the 70s?
Yes.
What nonsense! Singapore had no regulations. It was business
Yeah,
first.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a completely very successful country. I have
Yeah,
to say this.
absolutely,
Yeah,
but because they also cared about it. That's not the UK.
Yeah, no way. Not in the UK.
I mean, it is incredibly, not the right word isn't commercialized, but I think the right word is they have such stringent laws on businesses on how they can grow and how they can develop that it's killing their own industry.
In a multicultural environment. As well. They have managed to somehow, blend all these cultures together to create an economy, a very strong economy.
Sure,
I think
absolutely.
Bahrain does some lessons, but I still think Bahrain has its own personality.
I agree.
As such, which is the culture, the Arabs, the Islam.
I agree.
There's some of that can be different from Singapore.
So I see Bahrain right now going more and more into the medical industry. I'm especially down by Doha, near the military defense for the pilots. There's another hospital that is, I think, being built right now with combination with Saudi Arabia. It's meant to be one of the biggest hospitals in Bahrain.
Right. I think it's the King Abdullah.
I believe so.
King Abdullah, yeah, I think.
And do you think that Bahrain will become the medical center?
Oh, it has a lot of potential for that. It's already
the Middle East.
To have the number of medical institutions we have in Bahrain here is alarming, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I mean, I go sometimes to Europe, and I drive around, and I hardly see any hospital. So
and you wonder what's going on.
Here, yeah, so many medical institutions around. So maybe this is the future, and that's good because one area I think which Bahrain could really invest in, which is to attract retired people. So Bahrain can become an attraction to people who would really like to spend retirement days here.
I agree.
I know it sounds, a bit, I don't know, it's not exciting, but
sure,
that's the reality.
Sure.
We have fantastic healthcare system. The country is easy to
sure.
live in. Dubai probably could be too fast, too expensive,
sure.
too large. Bahrain is much more.
Do you see it more like Turkey, where it's more like middle class, or do you see it like Monte Carlo, where it's Monte Carlo is famous for attracting retired billionaires and millionaires.
Probably it's going to be more of Turkey. I think it's more of a middle class. This is my view. I could be wrong, but I'd love to make it even higher value place to live in. But I think we have all the infrastructure, the kind of the social, right? The social aspects of the country is different, very unique to Bahrain.
Absolutely.
Compared to all the other countries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And where would you see that the property then more booming? Would you see it more in the Seif, or would you see it more in Muharraq, or would you see it more in?
Well, I think Diyar al-Muharraq has now come up quite nicely.
Sure.
That's really, I think, with the new development of the bridge,
sure.
I think that's going to really make that part of the country boom a lot. I'm not sure if the Seif area has sufficient space. Maybe they can reclaim some more sea, but I think it's almost full. There are new areas like Madinat Salman is another area. I think that's gonna definitely boom. Then you have the conventional areas. I think areas where probably are closer to the sea will definitely have a higher chance of development. You have a fantastic area that's being developed, which is Bilaj al-Jazair, right? By Idama and other companies. That's a fantastic, and I've seen a model of that area. It's a city. It's a whole city, Hamad. It's unbelievable. If they continue on that project, it will be fantastic.
I mean, you have also al-Hassan, right? That is just just ripe for new financing, new money. Get rid of some of these buildings that have been there since 30, 40 years.
That's the beauty. So Block 338 and all these
Absolutely.
areas. That's definitely.
And you're right next to the coastline as well.
It's a tourist attraction. It's a tourist attraction, though.
and you have what is the American area called? I keep forgetting.
Jufair.
Jufair. You also have Jufair that has a lot of skyscrapers.
Yes.
I think it just needs a little bit more. I think not parks, some sort of like gathering area, because you have a lot of high-scale buildings.
Yes.
But there feels like there's no activity.
The urban planning. The urban planning is missing probably there. I think Block 338 and all Adliya area. I think that's it's a much more I think it's a better planned place, I think. And it's still coming. There's always new development in that area, in that block. It's coming every day. It's a fantastic place to be in.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. So looking at it now, hindsight, 2020, if you were a 20-year-old man, what area would you try to get an apartment in? What area would you say, hey, you know what?
Well, I think it's good to invest in Bahrain. I mean, I see people investing in Turkey and in Europe and the UK. I still think Bahrain still has a lot of
I'm with you 100%. I'm with you.
Potential. I love the Bahrain Bay area. I would love to buy a property in there as well. For someone who is young, I think that's a fantastic area. There's so many opportunities there in Bahrain Bay. That's an area that I would definitely encourage people to live in.
I totally
very
agree.
Cosmopolitan. It's very modern. I think it's close. It's not that far. Very modern, stylish building.
And how do you feel that the tourism in Saudi and Bahrain is going to carry forward? Do you think that a lot of Saudis are going to come and buy vacation homes here, which I can very well imagine, especially people from maybe Qatif or maybe from Dammam, maybe a little even further out than Riyadh, might come here and say, you know what, I would love to, especially flight tickets get cheaper again, where they can take a quick plane.
We can have a train.
Or train.
On the new causeway, right?
Exactly.
Could we have a train? That's going to make it completely different environment. Look, I still think, even if Saudi, even the Eastern Province transforms and transitions, I still think people would love to come to Bahrain. Just like how Bahrainis love to go to Saudi for dinner. I know some friends just go to Al Thigba here.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you going? Oh, we're just going to Thigba for dinner. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we have so many restaurants. Yeah, for a change. Yeah. So that kind of, it's a human nature. You want to have a change. You want to basically people still see Bahrain as a fantastic, relaxing.
I agree. I completely agree with you.
I mean, the shopping, right? Why would people shop at Moda Mall from Saudi Arabia? Moda Mall is very much flourishes during the weekends. It's because people coming from Saudi Arabia as well. I mean, if you go during the week, it's empty. But then during the weekend, it's quite full. And because people love to shop around and spend more time different from their routine area. Even if it's marvelous area, they still want to have a change.
I think there are certain, I mean, it's beautiful to see that these countries are so interlocked and there are services, not just businesses. And one of the key examples, I think, when Saudi was almost locked down for 2 years, the people who were crying the most that I was hearing were two people, the dry cleaners.
Right.
And because, you stay in a hotel, whatever else, before you go home, you want to have clean clothes, right? Yeah. And the other one was the shisha places.
Right.
And I was really surprised by that.
Yeah.
And I found it amazing how you can build an economy that is almost so parasympathetic.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And at the two.
Yes.
It's great.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, everybody's welcome here in Bahrain. I think
symbiotic is what I'm looking for.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else you'd like to say, sir? Anything else you'd like to say to the larger crowd or people?
Well, I mean, it's really wonderful to have really been invited to this session. I
anytime,
love it.
anytime.
It's definitely a fantastic forum for people like myself who's been through many experiences to share those ideas and thoughts, specifically with the younger generation. And I just want to again repeat the idea and the notion about being positive and optimistic about life and future. And I think, as I realize the issue is to do with the size of and the closed community that we have in Bahrain. So I think I would advise people to basically look outside Bahrain. If you have the opportunity to experience work, to have an experience outside Bahrain, just do it. I think that's what I would say.
Let's take it to the next level then. I'm going to hold you in for another 10 minutes because you brought this up now. Sorry now. Do you believe that companies should actively create funds, put aside not put aside at least a fund where they take their best employees, the highest achievers, the most active ones, and say, hey, listen here, we think you're whatever out of 100, let's pick 10. We think you 10 really deserve it. You've worked hard. We want to send you to do any kind of training further out. Do you think that?
I don't know if you've heard of Tamkeen in Bahrain.
Yes.
Yes. Tamkeen has a program for that, right?
Yes.
So they would definitely contribute to a program like this.
But only within its own field. Sorry to interrupt you, by the way.
Well, I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, if for example, you are a bank and you have a sort of a management training program for new graduates, fresh graduates, and then you would pick, the most, the highest skilled and the most active, maybe 5 or 10, and then send them outside and have some sort of a collaboration with another bank in the city or in New York,
Japan, New York,
Japan,
Hong
so
Kong,
they
wherever.
gain experience, okay, without any obligation, right? So you kind of remove that pressure of, oh, I'm obliged to go back and continue. These people might be able to find other opportunities while they're there. So what? Okay, one day they will come back, but they have a loyalty towards you, right? If you have initiated that program. So I think this is a great idea. I think it will have fantastic funding from Tamkeen and from some of the governments. Look, when I was at Mumtalakat, I kind of led a program. Again, this is very close to my heart, and I have to share it here. A program that was done between the University of Bahrain, Microsoft, because I was obviously in the field of technology, and Gulf Future Business.
Wow.
One of my friends was running this business, and whereby we basically take 15 top achievers from the computer science in year 3, and we basically put them through training programs, right, in year 3. So that's basically 1 year before they graduate. So, and then walk them through the training and skills development and nourish them. So they go back to their final year, but they're equipped with certifications from Microsoft. So when they graduate, they will be immediately marketable, immediately skilled. They have their degrees, plus they have their professional certification.
Do you believe universities, if you had the opportunity to convince universities and say, hey, listen, you know what, whatever an underground is, I think it's 3 years in Bahrain? Or is it 4?
I think 4 years.
Okay,
4
so
years.
it's US style. So say, okay, we should, for the last year, let's make it 3.5. The other half, let's initiate these students and find for them placements. Find them placements, and wherever the top guys go to Goldman, go to Microsoft, wherever. If you're lower down the rankings because you didn't achieve that well, or you don't care, we send you to something local. But everyone who after that university has experience.
They probably have something like that. I don't know, to be honest, Hamad. I think they probably have something like that, but I think we need to see more. We need to see more these programs funded by the enterprises.
Sure.
It's not, we just don't depend on the government or the university. I think the industry should also invest in these programs.
I completely agree. That's why I asked you about whether or not you think CEOs and companies should make those funds.
Oh, absolutely. They should, to be honest. They should allocate fund, again, with no obligations. So at least it relieves the individual from the pressure of having, oh, I'm obliged here. No, I think you've done very well. You're an A-star person or an individual. I think you deserve to have this opportunity, to be given this opportunity.
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I have a great story with Deutsche Bahn. I met one of the execs there once, and we were talking about how to trade staff, how to maximize your returns, and he was mentioning to me that if he has someone in the firm, in his hierarchical chain, that there isn't a position higher available, he will actively try to push them out.
Okay.
And I was stunned by that.
Yes.
And I was like, you spend all this time training, vetting, getting this good resource. And he said, no, you don't understand. Yeah. When he goes to a different industry, we are still then connected, right? He will spread in that corporation, that culture, our good intentions and how we care about our staff, and he will more likely do business with us than with any other competitor.
But that again, you're talking about leadership here, right? So
Absolutely.
leadership that's really a very strong signal of strong leader.
Absolutely.
Not everybody would do that, unfortunately.
Sure.
People who are really possess strong leadership skills would definitely push. They would recognize those who are really great achievers, and then they would push them.
But I mean, don't forget, Deutsche Bahn is a nationalized business.
Yes.
I mean, that's unbelievable. I've never heard of that kind of thing ever in the world.
Absolutely, yes.
And he says that's our entire culture. Our entire culture, because we're nationalized, we have that excess funding, we can do these things.
Yes. There's no question. I think
blew my mind.
Yeah, there's still, I know a number of banks in Bahrain, for example, they fund the Crown Prince scholarship program.
Yes.
That by itself is an example of how they allocate these funds. But I think we need more. We need more from employees, right? Fresh graduates who join the workforce in various organizations. They should be recognized those who really are high achievers, they should be, given the opportunity to see and experience world outside of Bahrain.
And
very important.
Do you believe that in order, because sorry to bring this back to what you were saying, to get these people in the right mindset, to get them out of a negative mindset into a positive mindset, how would you be able to control that interactions? We talked about trying to limit maybe through LinkedIn or WhatsApp about the kind of negativity that you can spread. Maybe, pointing out and calling it out and being like, hey, you know what? Let younger generation, but for that to occur, you need to have strong characters necessary to be able to, like yourself, to say, guys, cut it out. Right?
Yes, absolutely. I think, yeah, you're right. I think, again, the educational institutions in Bahrain need to play a major role in this. What's missing here is the ability to, bridge and expose students, university students, to the real life. Right? I see that's missing. I see there is a missing component in terms of preparation.
Application versus theory.
Yes.
Right?
Even preparation of CVs and preparing the students to the real world. That's, I think, missing. Maybe they're doing a bit of it, but for example, in the US, they have what they call it, the career
advisor.
Career shows.
Oh, career shows, yeah.
Yeah, they have careers, and they have all these big companies going into the universities and advertising for intakes, internships. So that's, maybe it's happening to a very, I think Bahrain Polytechnic is doing it to some extent, but we need to see more.
I would love to see, this might be a bit too much and it might not be functional, but I would love to see for graduates, in order to graduate with your degree, you have to sit at least 6 months at an actual business. Right? Because in the UK, they do offer systems where they say, hey, you know what? Your last year of graduation, we can offer you placement and X and X and X. But a lot of students, lazy.
Yeah.
They go.
You know what? I think the degree I did 2 years of education. And then I came back to Bahrain. And I did 12 months of training at Bahrain Petroleum Company.
Fantastic.
And then I went back and I did my final year.
Fantastic.
Trust me, Hamad, I think that year has contributed a lot to my end results.
Fantastic.
I learned a lot and I applied it into my final year project and I did very well. It's just because of the knowledge that I captured during my training at Babco.
But don't you feel like universities then should make that as a rule for graduates? Hey, you know what? You want your degree? Go work 6 months at firm.
Because you know why? Because you become more employable. You
agree.
become employable immediately.
I agree with you.
After you leave.
I agree with you. But I think that's what the education system needs to change. They need to say to the students, hey, you know what? You paid your money. Sorry. You're working for your degree. Great. And if you want that pass, you want that grade, you got to go and work for 6 months, and you have to bring back whatever, a letter or your performance or whatever else.
There's no question on that. I think that's definitely an added, part of on the university's part, basically.
I think that
so
curriculum
basically
needs
what
to be
you're saying
added.
is the universities need to play a role, as well as the businesses, enterprises need to play a role.
Absolutely.
Both, I think, should...
Especially a lot of these private universities, right? That have the excess funding necessary to order to attract these businesses and say, hey, you know what? If you're willing to take our students, we can do a donation or we can do whatever to then secure them a placement.
Absolutely. Can't agree with you more.
Perfect. Anything else that you'd like to say, sir?
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I hope I have shared some of my ideas and thoughts, and I hope people can basically listen. I'm happy to again engage with anyone who is really looking to move into a different technology world. If they're not sure whether this is the right field for me or not, I can definitely advise anyone.
How would you like people to contact you potentially?
Why not? Yes, of course. I'm available, obviously.
Sure.
My LinkedIn profile, I think maybe you can share it.
Sure.
And then people can
do you have more public one? Do you have maybe a Twitter or something that you use
I'm not that really
social
active
media.
on social media.
Sure.
I have some reservation on that.
Sure. That's fair.
I'm probably more of a LinkedIn person.
Okay.
Maybe I see that as a great channel. I think I just kind of channeled everything through LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Well, it was a pleasure, sir. Again, please... Saying. Sorry, it's been a long episode.
It is.
Sorry, yeah, okay. So everyone out there, please follow Jameel. Go on his LinkedIn. It's in the bio. Message him directly.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, and if you don't have any questions, just message him and say, thank you. It was a great show. Hello, whatever you'd like.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if your inbox is full, then sorry, don't complain to me then.
No, happy to have everybody. Thank you.